Check 2. Hello. Hello, friends. Hello. Lodane, thank you so much. 23 months of Tier 1 from Lodane. Lodane, thank you for everything. Thank you for everything, Lodane. How's it going, everybody? Welcome back. Welcome back to TRRS.
You've just become an elite member of the Friendship Triangle.
And with my sub goals not even there. Paradis, thank you so much for 10 gifted subs from Paradis. Unbelievably kind and generous. Thank you. What a wonderful way to get started here. Jeez. Jeezum Crow, as we say sometimes.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
1 year. TRRS shocked TRRS drums.
Waldo's, thank you for the 13 months of Prime.
You've just become an elite member of the Friendship Triangle.
Waldo's, thank you for the 13 months of Prime. I believe that's actually longer than 1 year. I believe that is I believe a year is 12 months. So it's a year plus 1 month, Waldo's. But thank you so much. Very happy to have you in the community for an entire year. And Pam Palmater. Oh my goodness. Pam Palmater. With the 5 gifted subs as well. Thank you, Pam. And in fact, now is a good time to point out that next... Okay, I'm just realizing, actually, now that I say this, Pam, I'm realizing that Tuesday may be an issue for me. That may be actually a problem. Right when I was about to plug it. Perhaps you might want to shift that to Thursday. But next week, I will be appearing on Pam Palmater's Twitch stream to talk about federal politics in Canada. It was supposed to be Tuesday. As soon as I went to plug it, I looked at the date and I realized that is probably not going to work. But next week, I'm so sorry. Next week for sure.
Rob Russo, some leftist based in Canada. I was turned on to this sick individual, and I found this.
Next Thursday, I will be appearing on Pam's Twitch channel to talk about federal politics in Canada and our friend Pierre Poilievre, among other things. Very excited to do that. And sorry for the curveball there, Pam. I'm sorry for the curveball. Ambigubot, thank you for the raid. Bring it on in here, Raiders. Thank you, Ambigubot. Very much appreciated. How was your stream today? I hope it was good. I hope it was a good one. Get in here, Raiders. I'm Rob. We should start every stream clearing up scheduling conflicts. Eventually, I will figure out how to do this. Eventually, I'm going to figure out how to be a professional Twitch streamer. One of these days. We're going into year 3 here. Maybe sometime around year 4 or 5. I'm going to figure out how to do this. Part of the problem is, like, for me, it's like I don't make a connection with days and dates. Like, all I was thinking was, like, Tuesday.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
All I was thinking was
Immune
Tuesday.
to propaganda for 14 months. Femini 5 sickle TRRS Friendship Triangle Femini 5 sickle.
Thank you very much, Tiniest Boop. 14 entire months of Tier 1 from Tiniest Boop. Thank you very much, Tiniest Boop. Immune to propaganda. That's absolutely right. Yeah, part of the reason is that I don't connect like actual days to dates. I was just thinking Tuesday. Am I doing anything Tuesday? Sure, I'm not. And then as soon as I saw the date, I was like, ooh, that is going to be an issue. It is actually my partner's birthday on that day. That is why I probably shouldn't schedule anything that evening. Happy birthday in advance to her. I need my calendar in front of me, or I have no idea what I can and can't do. This is it. I need an assistant, I think. I need a personal assistant. I think that's my problem. I am taking, if anyone wants to volunteer for that position, it will be a thankless position, believe me. It will be a thankless position. It will not be enjoyable for you. But if anyone wants to volunteer for that, feel free. Okay? Feel free. The job title is Deputy Rob. Assistant to the Deputy Rob. Something like that. If anyone wins the lottery, all I want for Christmas is an assistant. Seriously. Seriously, Pam. We need someone to do this. We need someone to do this for us. Anyway, I hope everyone had a great weekend. Sorry I wasn't around yesterday. There was a lot going on. There was the Brazil election I wanted to talk about. There was the Quebec election. But my son did not have school yesterday. For a number, I don't know why exactly. Maybe something to do with the election. It was just like what we call a PED day here. So I ended up my favorite Twitch star. Love your up. Thank you, Dr. Yazman. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. So I just spent the day with my son yesterday, which was very nice. It was very nice. We had a nice time. We went to the park. We hung out. He played at the park. We went to the movie theater. We saw the movie Minions: Rise of Gru yesterday, which he's been asking to go to the theater to see that like all summer. And somehow it's still in the one theater in Montreal, which I found. We went to see Minions: Rise of Gru, had some popcorn, went to the comic book store after, just looked around. We didn't get anything, but just looked around there. All kinds of cool toys and stuff in there that you got to check out. So that's it. I wasn't able to stream yesterday, but I had a nice time hanging out with my son. We had a nice day today together. It was good stuff. I went to the old spaghetti factory for an authentic Italian dining experience. It was honestly really good. The old spaghetti factory. Is that like a euphemism for something, or is that an actual place, Eric? That sounds like an expression or a saying that I'm just not familiar with. Sounds pleasant. It was very pleasant. It was very, very pleasant. Actual place, okay. How does it feel to live in a Quebec Liberal stronghold? The Quebec Liberals are more weird to me than CAC voters. Yeah, it is strange. It is strange, Mondo Michel. And it's interesting. I mean, we're going to get more into the Quebec election stuff. I wanted to have maybe Nora Loretto come on to talk to us. She's not available today, but I think tomorrow Nora is going to come on for more Quebec breakdown. We'll do a bit of that today, but I think Nora is someone that's probably pays closer attention to it than I do and can probably help break it down a lot better than I can. So Nora should probably be coming on tomorrow to talk about this. But yeah, it is strange to live in a liberal stronghold. Although there's a lot of places in Montreal that QS has made a lot of inroads. I think it's like when it comes to QS, Quebec Solidaire, which is like the kind of like social democrat party here in Quebec. It's like it's one of the more left-wing parties that you can kind of vote for probably in North America. Not that I don't think they go far enough in many ways, obviously, but I did vote for QS despite living in a liberal stronghold. And they like, even though I think like you have to look at their result as being kind of disappointing, considering it's been several years of François Legault and the CAQ, and there's all kinds of things that they could have been organizing around the COVID response, the Islamophobia, the anti-immigrant stuff, all kinds of things that Quebec Solidaire, I think, should have been organizing around and kind of a little bit failed to do that. They still are. They still have some they still had some decent results last night. Metal Dipshit, support the cult. Sorry, Triangle. I've never seen that before. Elevated a message. I have never seen that before. Metal Dipshit. Thank you very much, Metal Dipshit, for the $6.50. I don't know if that's supposed to be $5 American. It works out to $6.50 with the exchange rate. Thank you, Metal Dipshit. Extremely new Twitch feature. Yeah. Very cool. Mondo Michel, the 2 new QS ridings bring control of the island's bridges up to 6. Clearly military strategy for the coming revolution. If only that was in their plans. If only that was in their plans, I would probably be a lot more excited about QS. And I think that's the one thing that I noticed last night. Again, I was watching the election results come in, and I think, it's good that they're making all these inroads in Montreal, which is a very kind of like isolated, weird place it's not really connected politically, like to the rest of Quebec or the rest of Canada or the rest of North America, really. And it's good that QS is doing well here, but it's like, there was a few really interesting results last night out in these like rural communities, like rural mining towns in Quebec, where I saw that they didn't win, but had a pretty strong showing. And that, I think, if there's going to be a future for left-wing politics in Quebec, it's going to have to happen there more than like the sort of progressive intelligentsia academic areas in Montreal. So like that was kind of encouraging, but overall, it was immediately called for Legault and the CAQ, despite all the problems that I outlined before. So that was pretty discouraging. It was a pretty discouraging result overall. I'm kind of trying to see a few like positive things, a few positive takeaways, but overall, it was a pretty disappointing evening. We all support the apprenticeship pyramid. Again, not a pyramid though. That's important to point out. Important to point out that it's not a pyramid at all. It's two-dimensional triangle shape.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Marina, thank you for the gifted sub as well. I really appreciate that, Marina. Thank you. Would you consider Montreal to be Vermont adjacent? And if so, is the Bernie Sanders influence responsible for the misogyny there? It is Vermont adjacent, and one of my crazier political ideas, which I still believe in, is that eventually Quebec should separate and Vermont should separate from the United States, and we should form a super state, an international powerhouse, an international superpower of Quebec, Vermont. Join forces, Vermontreal. And then I think we should join the Belt and Road Initiative. We should each separate, form a new superpower within Canada and the United States. Join the Belt and Road Initiative. That's my crazy idea. And then join the Russian Federation. That's right. That's correct. That is absolutely right. I sure wish we were a leftist stronghold instead of a liberal stronghold out here in Kingston as we go into our municipal elections. All the signs in my street are for the liberal dude running for councillor. Yeah, very, very liberal stronghold. Definitely the area that I live here in Montreal. I considered voting for the Marxist-Leninist Party because, there's the Communist Party of Canada and then there's the Communist Party Marxist-Leninist, who I voted for in the last federal election, the Hojaist Party. No one knows who they are. I was looking at the candidate, the Communist Party ML candidate, who's run in my neighborhood like every single election for the last 20 years. And I don't think anyone's ever seen this person. I'm not even sure that it's a real person. I considered voting for them anyways though, but I just voted for QS, even though I don't think QS is perfect. They are like a legitimately viable party in this country, in this Freudian slip there. I called Quebec a country. Freudian slip. They are a viable third party here, and have some pretty decent politics, even if I might not agree with everything that they do. So I just voted for QS. Can Montreal form a bizarro good NATO with Ireland? I would like to look into that, yeah. I would like to look into that. Independent Montreal going to get them bunkers, that's right. Absolutely. Declare the island a breakaway republic. We just need international backing. We just need someone. Whether it's China, whether it's Russia, we need someone to step up and give it that crucial backing, the crucial recognition. This is all down the line, some crazy ideas that I have, you know? We don't need to get into it now. This is not a right now thing. This is like, you know, a little bit in the future. Toronto election is giving me those doom vibes, like the mayor isn't even campaigning and he's probably going to win by default. I mean, that's what all these elections feel like recently, isn't there? It just feels like, regardless of all the, you know, we're always waiting for those contradictions to be heightened. We need those. As soon as those contradictions are heightened, everyone's going to realize what's going on. And they're going to start. But it's like the contradictions are so fucking heightened. They're like insanely heightened. And it doesn't seem to make all that much of a difference, does it? It just doesn't really seem to make that much of a difference. There's the fucking contradictions could not be more. I don't think they could not be more heightened. Boomers stun locked on the status quo. It seems like everyone is. Not until the treat economy breaks down. Well, that's a lot of it too, isn't it? Yeah, it's really hard to find a way out of that. You know, Quebec is a little bit different. It's a little bit of a unique place because there's been a sort of a vibrant left in Quebec for a few generations, and there's still elements of that. Even when it comes to the CAQ, who are a conservative party, they have to kind of like lean in these like more populist left-wing directions sometimes, even if it's kind of phony and fake. They have to do it so they can win elections. But I mean, everywhere else, it's just, you see the result of just the decades of the left being crushed, and the decades of anti-communism. It's the building block around like everything all the propaganda that we're exposed to. And so we see everything beginning to break down, and all these contradictions being heightened the way that we're told they're supposed to be, and then the result's still the exact same. The result is like we still just have this choice between these fucking neoliberal losers and weirdos or just these lunatic right-wingers. There doesn't seem to be any escape from that. Everyone knew the project had exhausted itself, but no one could imagine an alternative. It do be like that sometimes, don't it? Was that pragmatic pancakes Polyev guy running in Quebec? No, Husker Du, he was not. He's federal. He's going to be running in the federal election. He just won the Conservative Party leadership, so in the next federal election in Canada, he's going to be running in that. And he's very much one of these guys that's like pointing out all the major economic consequences of decades of neoliberalism, and you know, the privatization, the lack of public spending, or the austerity, you know, the deregulation, all these things that have like destroyed working people's lives and destroyed the middle class. And then Pierre Poilievre is someone that goes around and looks at all these consequences and says, can you believe this? Like, I'm going to be a champion of the small guy, when really he's literally just advocating for all of this to make all these problems worse. You know? He is a weasel. He's absolutely a weasel. Plague, famine, war, we're only getting started on the last one. There's no opening until the legitimacy of liberalism breaks down in a functional way. Big wars usually do that. And that's true, yeah. That is true. Gosh, we're getting really heavy. We're getting into some really heavy stuff here. We're still in the hello section, friends. We're still in the hello section. We're supposed to be like talking about beverages and, you know, whatever, like nostalgia, movies. I could have spent this whole time talking about Minions: Rise of Gru, which I saw yesterday in the movie theater with my son. I could have been talking about Minions: Rise of Gru this entire time. I can't wait for Prime Minister Milhouse. Well, that's the sad thing, is that it's probably going to work. I had a lovely cup of coffee this morning. That's great. I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear that, Marina. That's more of the chit chat that we're used to here. I just had, what did I have? I had a cup of coffee. I had a Diet Pepsi And I just a few minutes ago finished an orange bubbly. I had an orange bubbly as well. No beverages, only doom. What is your opinion of the short film British Lads Hit Each Other with Chair? Huge fan. Huge fan of that. I'm trying to find I'm trying to find the video now. It's one of the greatest short films, really, that I've ever seen. Let's take a look at this. Sometimes dudes really do rock, you know? It's true. Sometimes they do. And we shouldn't deny that. We should embrace it. This is beautiful. This is friendship.
Make sure it breaks in one, yeah? You say what about Lucy? You need to hit it hard, hit it hard so it breaks in one. Alright. I'm gonna get him on. End it, end it. Fuck hell, go on. Right, I'm gonna get him on. Hit it hard. Joe, bend over, mate. Right. Don't get me in. No, Joe.
Come on then.
Alright. 1, 2, 3. You don't need Jim. Over his back. No, we can't give him it. I mean, you have to do it on the back. On the back. On the fucking back. Shitting hell, mate.
What's more? Oh. It was the legs.
I'm not doing that again. I'm not doing that again. That's ridiculous.
That's not how you do it.
That's ridiculous.
Get him up.
That's ridiculous. Fantastic. You got that video?
It's on your fucking back, innit? How hard is it?
Turn around, you little cunt.
That was really the worst way to possibly do that. Right with the legs. The legs right on the back. This is beautiful, though. Look at this. This is beautiful. We love to see this. He's really got to go for the square in the back shot, though, because that was not good. This is like the Soviet comrade kiss between friends. It is true. It is true. I really enjoy that. They do start with a lovely kiss. It's true. Yeah. They do. It's very wholesome. The chair with the legs, that's not good. Yeah, that's not the way you want to do that. It's got to go flat on the back. Hurting your friends is not wholesome. No, I do agree that. I do agree with that. I think there could have been more care taken to protect his friend there. That is true. I don't think enough care was taken on that. Hurting your friends consensually can be wholesome. Well, here's the issue with this clip, right? Obviously, consent was given for a little bit of hurting. Okay, clearly. I mean, he fell down on what appeared to be broken glass, and then got back up. So clearly, consent was given for the hurting. Unfortunately, it was the technique, though. The technique was not good. The technique was not good. You know, that could have been done way more safely. A younger, fitter necro butcher. How can you defeat the fascists if you can't take a chair to the back? That is true. Although, again, with getting hit with the legs like that, that's not good. Butcher versus Joe is still an all-timer. You know what I really like? The Necro Butcher match that I really enjoy, great man, is Necro Butcher versus Randy the Ram Robinson in the film The Wrestler. That was my first exposure to Necro Butcher. When Randy the Ram, he has like a heart attack or something after the match because he gets all stapled up. Remember Superfly Snuka? Yeah, I do. I do remember that. And he actually murdered his girlfriend, and Vince McMahon helped cover it up. I'm sorry to spoil what you were saying, HTA. Great wrestler, but unfortunately murdered his girlfriend, and it was covered up by Vince McMahon. That's problematic to me. You know? I don't think that's very good. I don't think we should support that. I don't support that. That's no good. Yeah, okay. I think I have the exact same chair from IQ who wants to give it a go. I mean, I could take it a flat on the back. A strike on the back. That was the other guy failed in his responsibility there. We're canceling Jimmy Snuka. I'm sorry, but we have to do it. I'm sorry. I'm against this cancel culture stuff. I am. But to me, that crosses a line. It's problematique. That's right. Okay, 10,000 sandwiches. All right. All right. All right now. Okay. So I don't know if you noticed, I had some plants and stuff on my top shelf there, but it's kind of interfering in the shot. I got to fill it up with more books, but right now it's just empty. The shelf is empty like my head. The plants just weren't getting enough sunlight over there. The plants were not getting enough sunlight. We need another take on the Rob Knife meme where it's more like the Wesley Snipes crying one for when you, under protest, cancel people. Exactly, yeah. He may have been a murderer, but he made cool hand gestures when he jumped from the top rope. Remember he jumped off the cage that one time? Yeah. Classic. Classic moment in Pro-Graps history. Who's to say? Who's to say what's right or wrong? Is Wesley Snipes canceled as well? Jesus, I didn't know that, Lodane. I thought he was just like a tax dodger, which I thought was kind of cool. Oh, man. I love Wesley Snipes. That's bullshit. What an asshole. Jesus. That's horrible. He's already killed the buzz. It's okay. Sometimes we need to know about this stuff. Who's the guy who has their own version of math? That's Terrence Howard. Terrence Howard, who would have had a starring role in like all the Avengers movies. He was in the first Iron Man film and got replaced by Don Cheadle for Iron Man 2 because of his like weird personal behavior. So I don't even want to calculate how many millions he missed out on with that. That's probably something that's difficult for him to, as much as he's inventing new math, doing the math of all those Avengers films that Don Cheadle has been in since then must be difficult. Oh, well, at least I'll have my childhood hero Hulk Hogan. Now to take a big drink of coffee and look at his Wikipedia page. Yeah, there we go. As far as I know, he's never done anything wrong. I mean, I'm still okay with Blade. I just remember he's bad personally. For me, it's White Man Can't Jump. That's I just can't let go of that one. That's just one of my favorite films. It's one of the best sports films, and it's just one of my favorite films, period. That's probably a top 10 film for me. Definitely top 20, possibly top 10. We need to jazz up your Amazon wish list. I want to buy you some leather paint for your chair. We might be able to get a triangle on it or something. That'd be kind of cool. I wasn't aware that was a thing. I was just hoping my big head would block it. Would block my fucked up chair. Or, you know what I could do? I could get one of those like taxi driver bead things. What about that? What about that? If I had one of those bead things on my chair. What do we think about that? Remake White Man Can't Jump with Terrence Howard and Steven Seagal. I did come up with a very good idea for a sequel to White Man Can't Jump, which one day I hope, if I can ever get my foot in the Hollywood filmmaking business, I plan to try and make that a reality. There was also the Snipes Harrelson follow-up flick Money Train where they played the NYC Transit Police. I do remember that. Yeah, and they robbed the train. I do remember the titular Money Train. I do remember that. That I've probably only seen once though, whereas White Man Can't Jump I've probably watched. It's probably in the triple digits. I've probably watched that film over 100 times in my life. Classic. Classic flick. A film that I've watched with parents and grandparents before. It's always awkward in that scene with Rosie Perez and the sexual intercourse scene. Always awkward when you're a little kid watching that with your folks. There's a lot of cursing as well. I probably had no business watching that when I was like 12 years old.
You can count on me.
I did.
You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Hey, thank you, Comrade Social Distancing, for the gifted sub. Thank you. I mean, listen. We're bringing up Steven Seagal, and I this is something that I wanted to take a look at. You know, last Tuesday, actually, we were talking about Steven Seagal and you know, I was talking about Hard to Kill, and I saw a number of comments about Steven Seagal and his relative toughness and all this stuff. But it's like that I think is taking it too far. I mean, just look at this guy. Look at how easily this guy dispatches multiple opponents like it's nothing. And a lot of people in the chat are like talking shit, saying, "Oh, he's not tough." You know, I could take Steven Seagal easily. He pooped his pants when Jean LaBelle strangled him one time. Look at how easily this man just dispatches dozens of people. Like it's nothing. Watch this. And you folks are going to pretend that this is not tough? You people in the chat, oh yeah, I'm sure you could take Steven Seagal. Look at this. Look at that. Like nothing. It's like nothing to him. Easy. Look at that. Two guys trying to get him. It's like absolutely no chance. He's barely even breaking a sweat. He's bored. He's bored while he's doing this. Easily dispatching multiple people trying to get him. Just effortlessly whooping copious amounts of ass. Look at this guy on the floor now is too scared to even get up. Look at that. Like nothing. And you have people in the chat being like, oh, he's not, Steven Seagal's not tough. Steven Seagal's not tough. And here he is just like effortlessly destroying, just mowing bitches down. Effortlessly destroying everyone in his path. So maybe you'll think a little bit harder next time before you start talking smack. There's honestly an endless supply of terrible martial arts videos on YouTube, stuff like this, where it's being used to promote some dojo.
This is some guy, Rob Russo, some leftist based in Canada. I was turned on to this sick individual, and I found
this is a teaching moment. It's true. It's true. Hey, Left Flank Vets. Oh my. Left Flank Vets. Thank you so much for the raid. He's in the DPR using those same techniques against NATO forces. That's right. Left Flank Vets, I hope you had a great stream. Thanks for the raid. I appreciate that. And one question for you. One question for you. Are you Steven Seagal? One question for the raiders coming in right now. Are you Steven Seagal haters or Steven Seagal incorrectly? Are you Steven Seagal enjoyers? I'll just one more time. Because I've seen people saying all kinds of things about Steven Seagal, how he's not tough, he's lazy, he's old, he's overweight. Look at this. Look at this, though. You have two guys trying to get Seagal. No chance whatsoever. Look at him. Look at this. There is a correct answer. Look like nothing. Short arm clothesline. If Marcus or anyone else in the Left Flank Vets community ever tried to step to me, this is how I would act. This is what I would be doing. Not that it would ever come to that, I know. I've trained in the ancient art of Aikido as well, though. Not everyone knows this about me.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
There's no subversive stream I lick more than the Rob Rousseau show. I mean like, not lick. I don't know why I would say that. Also Steven Seagal is a cop. All cops are bastards, ergo Steven's a pig bastard. That's just math.
Thank you very much, River and Ravens, for the 8 months of Tier 1. Thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate that a lot. Thank you. This is how Rob handles NAFO, fellas. That's right. That's right. I mean, listen, is Seagal a cop? Look at this. Here he is gifting a cool sword to Nicolas Maduro. I love how Maduro's into it too. Maduro starts doing the moves and stuff. Come on, that's pretty cool. We're canceling Seagal when here he is gifting swords to the president of Venezuela. Friend of the stream, Nicolas Maduro.
importante espada. En este contexto, el actor Steven Seagal ha expresado: queremos luchar por la paz, la armonía y los resultados positivos.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Steven Seagal's house was for sale recently. The most ass-kicking house I've ever seen. I imagine. I imagine it was. I have trained in the ancient art of talking trash before the fight begins, pretending to get ready, but then instead running away very fast. I'm undefeated. I've actually never been in a real fight. Has anyone in the chat been in a real fight before? I've never been in like an actual physical, like fisticuffs moment. You know, I've wrestled around. I've kind of, you know, whatever. Never been in any actual fisticuffs over here. I think I would be okay, though. I've had many of fisticuffs in my mind before. I've allegedly been known to scrap. Oh boy, there we go. I've never thrown a punch or been punched in my life. I've been in plenty of fights, like in my mind, you know, when you plays out there and someone tries to punch you and you're just like, catch the fist. I've been in plenty of those, but not in like actual real life, though. Lost teeth, not fun. That doesn't sound fun. Lost 1-1-1. That's a respectable record, Lizard. That's a respectable record. 1-1. Nothing wrong with that. Don't try to do that in an actual fight. Well, what if I did and it was really cool, though? What about that? Don't downplay the possibility that I could do something really cool like that. I could get lucky. Never lost a fight. I think I'm just too physically intimidating. That's the reason that I haven't. I think that's the problem. Anyone that's ever wanted to fight me just takes one look at me, like in real life, and they're like, oh, no way. No way. Can't do it. At the beginning of 9th grade, the kid with a chip on his shoulder followed me home and we got into it. We fought to a draw and it was enough for him to leave me alone. There we go, Carnoba. There we go. That's good. That's like the first episode of is it the first episode? I believe it is the first episode of Freaks and Geeks. Then you'd be fighting someone with brittle bones or muscular atrophy. Well, you've got to start slow, though. You've got to start, you know, with a certain skill level. I once bounced an N64 controller off my brother's head and then he tried to strangle me with a controller cord. That does happen sometimes, doesn't it? I got in a fight in 8th grade and tried to do a fancy kick I saw on Dragon Ball and then got punched in the face instead. I always thought, like, the one thing you could do if you're ever, like, in a fight, it is just to take off your shoes and socks. You know, when it's getting started? Some people, like, take off their shirts or whatever. You take off your shoes and socks. I think that would be enough for the person to be like, oh, fuck. Oh, fuck, what am I getting into here? What am I getting into? That has the potential to go really badly as well, though. There's a reason Glass Jaw Joe is the first fight in Knockout. Very true. Yeah. Simply seduce my opponent. You take off everything, like that fight in what's that Cronenberg Viggo Mortensen movie? What is that movie? I can search for it. No, not History of Violence. Eastern Promises. Yes. Eastern Promises. There's History of Violence is very good, but there's no nude fights in that. Yeah. My power move is to cut myself. Freaks people the fuck out. That's known as the Ric Flair. The Ric Flair maneuver. My buddy in high school had a pair of boxing gloves, and we'd take one and have a full-on fight. Only allowed to hit with the hand with the glove on. We'd trade gloves after each round, so it was equal. I've probably been in a few of those, but that's not the kind of fight that I'm talking about here. Closest I've come as a kid knocked me out with one roundhouse kick when I was a kid. I've been in a lot of kendo matches, real fights, because I'm 0-1, still better than Punk's record. Those CM Punk fights were pretty painful to look at, weren't they? That Eastern Promises fight scene is one of the greatest in film. It is really good, isn't it? It's really good. The real measure of a man is how many kindergartners he thinks it could take to bring him down. I mean, again, my son's in grade 1. He's pretty strong, but I don't think there's a real limit. I don't think there's a hard limit to the amount of like kindergartners or first graders that I could take on. I think I could easily take on 20 without much of a problem. They just don't, like, my son is pretty strong, but they just don't have the weight. You know, you can just throw them around no matter how strong they are. But there's an upper limit, right? Where's that line? I guess it's more about fatigue and conditioning at that point, right? Like, I think I would get tired. I would just get physically tired, and eventually I would just kind of like, I would be taking a break, and that's what they would strike. Yeah, this is what I'm saying, Marcus. Only a limit on my energy rations. With unlimited Monster energy drinks, I could defeat all children. I think I feel the same way. It's really just like a conditioning issue at that point. They have weapons or pocket sand. Yeah, I would say they'd be allowed to use like whatever's around. Gravel. Like what are those little pylons you see in schools sometimes? Would you rather fight 100 Furbies every day or one big bird once a year? I mean, like, do you mean a big bird like Sesame Street, or like a what is it, a swan? People are always afraid of swans for some reason because I guess they're tough. Oh, like actually Big Bird from Sesame Street. Definitely the Big Bird. Yeah, I think I could take Big Bird from Sesame Street relatively easily. Geese. I don't know. I feel like I could easily defeat a goose or a swan. Easily. No problem. Look at their big long necks. I just feel like people are holding back. They're pulling their punches. They're pulling their punches when they're in these hypothetical goose fights. Their bones are incredibly fragile. Like, I think you just got to take it seriously. Like, you're a human being. I love you, Robin. A goose would take you out to the woodshed. I disagree. I think I could easily defeat a single goose in combat. I would simply just grab the goose's neck. This is what I'm talking about. No problem. The goose strategy is to scare you off. If you don't get scared, what are you going to do? Who's going to be scared of a goose? Prove it on stream. I'm not going to fight a goose on stream. This is all just hypothetical. Love the serious political dialogue here on TRRS. And we started off getting serious and dark right away, and I pulled it back to this. Because I wasn't ready for it yet. You think such an obvious weak point doesn't have a self-defense mechanism? Would you just grab a giraffe's neck? I mean, a giraffe is a large creature, and that's kind of a different story. Although, yes, I do think I could, in theory, I don't want to get too overconfident about this. A goose I could defeat easily, but a giraffe, we're talking about a big creature there. I would like to think that if I could get it in sort of a rear naked choke position, you know? I don't know. Anything could happen at that point. I don't think I could defeat a giraffe. Yeah, that's just like a big animal. That's a very big animal. Swans are relentless. Humans always back down first. I am positive I could defeat a swan. Positive. What about a moose? No, absolutely. A moose is basically like an eldritch creature. Like those are just, they're fucking gigantic. A moose would just fuck anything up pretty much. However, you cannot beat a chimp. The muscles are in the casual face rip category. No, you wouldn't want to mess around with that at all. No. Just grab the moose by the horns. A famous horse. It's our friend Famous Horse of Netflix fame. From the famous Netflix documentary star. Famous Horse. Welcome. What about a baby giraffe? I think I could do a baby giraffe. Yeah, you ever seen them start to walk around? Their legs are all skinny and everything.
Me. You're gonna have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Aloha, comrades. Honored to be part of the Great Friendship Triangle for 10 months.
Thank you, Bark Eater. Thank you very much for the 10 months of Tier 1. I really appreciate that. Thank you. Geese wings can break human bones. I imagine swans too. Don't give me that. Don't give me that shit. Don't give me that shit. I do not believe anyone in this chat could defeat a goose. How big are we talking about here? These are small creatures. A goose. Are you serious? Do you know how much I weigh? Do you know how the weight advantage I would have over a goose? Significant. I would have a significant weight advantage. I would simply figure 4 leg lock the goose. I would put it in the sharpshooter. And it would be submitting in no time. And your neck is short and your teeth aren't as sharp. Well, that's what I mean, though. Its neck is super long and fragile. How hard is that just to get? It would snap you with the wing and you'd be in the 72 hours emergency waiting room. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Dude, fucking Google human fighting goose. I don't think I want to look at that on the stream. I feel like that's probably going to be... I don't even know for sure, but I feel like that's going to be terms of service. This chat is making me want to go find a goose to fight so I can free these people's minds. Marcus, come on. A goose. Seriously? Seriously, folks? Like Anakin Skywalker, you underestimate my power. They're trapped. They're trapped in the fear of geese, and it's ridiculous. I agree, Marcus. I agree. This is why we're friends, okay? We're on the same wavelength here. You can't even handle a seagull, and you want to fight a goose. I'm not even saying I want to. I don't want to. I told you before, I've never even been in a fight. I don't want to have to snap some animal's neck. I don't want to have to do that. I don't. I'm just saying, if in kind of like a life or death situation where it came down to it, I think I could easily defeat a goose in single combat. That's all I'm saying. Definitely not a kangaroo. No, though. I would not fuck around with one of those. I just showed the stream to my mom and asked if this bloke could take a swan. Her response, no chance. I don't know what the... I don't get this. One winged angel on a goose. That's all you need. It's the most devastating finisher in the business, Starlight. The most devastating finisher in the business. Anyway, I think that we can table this discussion now. I think we all agree. I think the chat seems to agree that I could easily defeat a goose or a swan. Everyone seems to be on the same page with that, so thank you everyone for supporting me on this. Everyone in the chat agrees. I could take 64 geese. Okay, maybe that's pushing it. That might be pushing it. That's a lot of geese. Make a poll. How do I even do that? I don't even know how to do that. Okay. Or do you see the poll? Let's see. Let's see here. Let's put this to the test. There's no shortage of videos on YouTube of people being defeated by geese. I just feel like they're pulling their punches, though. They're like, oh, I don't want to hurt this beautiful animal. I don't want to hurt this beautiful animal. I think that's more what's going on. Wow. I think there's some bot activity going on in this poll. I think we're being attacked by some kind of possibly Russian botnet here. That's the only explanation that I could think of. Stop the count. Stop the count. Wow, this is really overwhelming, isn't it? Okay. Okay. Rob Russo, known animal harmer, could fight a goose and win, but at what cost? And again, I would prefer not to ever be in this situation. Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. I would prefer never have to be in that situation. I think there's some people that are supporting me, which I appreciate. Well, Chad, us streamers are going to have to band together, start beating up animals. We didn't want to do this, but you're forcing us. I did not want to have to do this. Could Rob kill a goose? No. Could Rob fight a goose until it runs away? Absolutely not. Thank you, Sam. Thank you. I got your back. Fuck them geese. Steven Seagal versus Goose, who wins? Obviously Seagal. We already saw this man effortlessly defeating multiple assailants at the same time.
You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Hello, I would like to ask about the friendship triangle.
B-Rat, thank you very much for the 12 months of Tier 1. That's one entire year of Tier 1 from B-Rat. You don't even need to ask about it, B-Rat. You're already part of it. You're a part of the friendship triangle, and it's a part of you as well. The goose would knock off his glasses and it would be white flag time. As I explained last week, and I've explained many times before, I do not wear glasses in real life. I do not. My vision, I have 20/20 perfect 20/20 vision. I have perfect 20/20 vision. I do not wear glasses in real life. I only wear them on this stream, so that would mean nothing to me. I only wear them on this stream because they look good on camera, okay? Look, this always weirds people out because I'm so used to wearing these on the stream. It always weirds people out, but it's true. Look. It leaves an indent on my face. See? I can see perfectly. I can read signs. I'm looking out this window. I can read signs across the street. Perfect vision. It's 100% like a fashion choice. I wear those blue light filtering glasses sometimes because they look cool. Ain't gonna lie. Thank you, Sam. That's what these are. They're blue light glasses. And these glasses were given to me free of charge by... Did I forget the fucking name of the company? Did I forget the name of the company that sponsored me and gave me these glasses? You probably know what it is in the chat. Christopher Clues. Christopher Clues. Wow. And a 68% of you said no, I could not defeat a goose in single combat. I would like to take a look because it was yes. It was yes, and then lo and behold, overnight I saw the mail-in votes came in, and all of a sudden it flips. What's up with that? What's going on with that? It was going in one way, and then all the mail-in votes come in, and everything flips. We got to stop the steal. Okay. You know, eventually, but pretty soon we're going to have to start talking about serious shit here. I spent 3,000 points. I mean, we might as well... We have to do something with these clout points. You might as well use it to rig polls to humiliate me, I guess. You cannot defeat a goose. It's just the truth and nobody wants to admit it.
So here comes our victim. He has no idea.
Is there one? I don't want this commentary.
Oh yeah, he's gonna get a burden. Look.
I can see war. Morning.
He doesn't know.
That tiny little thing.
He doesn't know. Oh, he's gonna pick up the gun. Oh no!
See, this is pathetic. He's swatting at it with paper. No, I'm sorry, folks. I'm sorry. Look at how small this thing is. Look at how small this thing is. What is this guy trying to hit it with a piece of paper? What is that? He's trying not to hurt it. You people really don't think that I could defeat this creature. Look at how small it is. I could literally just jump on it. You jump on it, give it a double foot stomp, and it's instantly gone, instantly defeated.
We simply use the computer to mark up the size of the account.
I think Rob wouldn't defeat it, because he'd befriend it.
Maybe that's true. I am a friend to all creatures. That's true. That is true, B-Rat. Thank you for the 200 friend coin. There's another one waiting in the wings too. It's like the Velociraptor. They're hunting in teams. This man is pathetic. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, folks. I'm more convinced than ever. I am more convinced than ever after watching this video that I could defeat this creature. If I had to. If I had to. Not that I want to. I don't. I don't want to have to do this at all. That was a pathetic showing from that guy, though. Okay? Pathetic showing. Again, I'm asking you to consider the goose's tactics. Motorcyclist killed after goose strikes pushes Harley Davidson into oncoming traffic in Bristol Township. I would simply not ride a motorcycle during this encounter. Easy. That's his mistake. That sounds like a him problem. Once you enter the fight pit with the goose, you have to finish it. This is what this man didn't get.
Oh, yes. Oh my god.
He's so mad.
Yeah, I kept trying to tell him, don't stop, just keep walking.
See, none of these guys are taking this seriously.
Yes,
okay?
He's angry today.
The weather's got on a foul mood.
And these are troops. Are they U.S. troops? If so, it's not surprising that they couldn't defeat a goose. I don't know. This is what our tax dollars are paying for. You think it's easy to snap a goose's neck? That shit is like steel. No, but listen, I think if you could just get your hands on it, if you could just grab a fistful of feathers or feet or neck or whatever, then you just need to like jump on it. You just jump on it. Do you know how much I outweigh a goose by? Significantly. Okay? I know I'm losing a little bit of weight. I've been exercising a little bit more. I've been walking a little bit more. I still have a huge weight advantage over that creature, though. Just tie it into a knot. I don't know. If you won the fight, you'd lose at least 2 fingers. Well, you know, that's a price I'd be willing to pay. To prove you all wrong on this. All of you who have disrespected me and doubted me over this. Okay? Well, 8-finger Rob, they call him. That's right. Holding onto a goose neck is not easy. Well, that's the thing. I just need 2 seconds. I need 2 seconds to hold on to this thing. And it's in my territory. Then it's in my world. Okay? If you were to kill a goose, would you feel obligated to eat it? I guess it would depend on what condition it was in after. "2 seconds to snap a goose neck." No, but what I'm going to do is hold the goose and then just jump on it. I'm going to put it right under my knee and then just jump and put all my weight, easily crushing the goose in moments. Hello, I just spent $650 Canadian on this. Good afternoon, Triangle. Exalted members of the Friendship Triangle. Thank you, Pissed. Thank you for the 650 Canadian. I really appreciate that, Pissed. Thank you. Happy to have you in the chat today again. Thank you. So many doubters. It's true. This is making me sad. Geese are individuals that deserve friendship. And again, I don't want to fight a goose. I don't want to have to do any of this. Welcome to Goose Murdering Techniques 101. Easy to defeat a goose, just toss him into the cockpit canopy. Oh no. Oh no. Bringing back some painful memories. I don't want to have to, folks, I don't want to have to do any of this. Believe me. This whole discussion got started from me saying I've never been in a fight. I don't like harming other human beings. I certainly don't like harming beautiful creatures, such as geese. I'm simply saying, in a life or death situation where I was faced with this choice, I don't think it would be a problem for me to defeat one goose. That's all. That's all I'm saying. I don't want to, but I could. I would if I had to. Why are we fighting geese? I don't even know, but it's been a good 20 minutes, 25 minutes of talking about this now, and I'm ready to move on. Tomorrow Rob's going to go live with a mounted goose behind him on the wall that he just never acknowledges. Jesus. Okay. I'm never going to be ready to move on. I'm sorry, Miragons. I'm sorry. I think this is the most I've ever seen you in the chat. You're really animated by this discussion. I live by a field where the geese hang out all the time, and honestly, they've never bothered me except for the fact that they crap all over the field where I got to walk. That is unfortunate. I feel very strongly about this. I guess so. I guess so. If you don't mind, folks, I'm just gonna get a little beverage here. Okay. I'm gonna have another bubbly. I'm gonna go get that, and then we'll talk more about like important stuff. Okay. 1 sec. This would be me with multiple geese. Multiple geese. Just effortless. Chin chin. Got a cherry bubbly here. Crack open whatever beverages you got. Let's have no more Steven Seagal shit talking. Look how easily he destroys these guys. And he's bored by the whole thing. He doesn't even care. Next step. Easily. Rob just told me to crack open this 100 proof rum because it's what I got. But I don't know if I endorse that. It's still, I believe, I can't remember what time zone you're in, Lodane. It's probably a little early for that, though. This man could easily dispatch a goose. Easily. Central. Okay. Central. All right. I think we're all in agreement that Steven Seagal could defeat a goose easily. We we can agree on that one, okay? We can agree to disagree about my personal abilities, but I think we can all agree on that. Going to class, you better still be on when I get home, Rob. I'll see what I can do, horse, but thanks for stopping by. Congratulations on the Netflix fame. I'm sure those royalties are going to start rolling in any moment now. Thank you, Netflix, for featuring our friend Horse. So look, here's something interesting. I talked a little bit about the Quebec election. I don't want to get too much more into it because I think we're going to do more on that tomorrow with Nora Loretto. But I think this is something to take a look at. I talked about QS and like the QS result. I think this is kind of important because look, when you see the actual breakdown of votes, this is just an example of, I think, how fucked up our democracy is here in Quebec and elsewhere, really. But if you look at the Liberal Party versus QS, you will notice QS got significantly more votes in the election last night. Got more votes and a higher percentage of the vote, and yet is not the official opposition. And has 10 less seats than the Liberal Party. So I think that in and of itself, even though you can point to QS's results as being disappointing, the fact that they haven't really improved in their position, despite the last few years of the CAC and all the problems with that. But I think there's a serious problem here with our actual democratic system when you have this kind of discrepancy in the results. I mean, even the PQ with more votes than the Liberal Party, only 3 seats. I think that's probably something pretty important to point out. Deflected from Goose discourse. We're moving on from this. Sounds like your democracy is in need of saving. It's true, yeah. So that's it. I think we can talk about QS and whether they've done enough over the last few years to differentiate themselves, to organize. But like, this is a serious issue, like with our actual democratic system here. We're moving on from the geese thing. We're no longer talking about this. Okay. I did a good 20, 30 minutes on talking about fighting geese, and we're now moving on. We're moving on from this. Classic Canadian sham election. Well, this is the beautiful liberal democracy, the Western style liberal democracy that we love to lecture other countries about, right? Like every other country, whenever there's election in Cuba, when there's an election in Venezuela, when there's an election in the Donbass region, under these Russian occupied regions, it's always false, it's always fraudulent. We love to lecture China about our beautiful Western liberal democracy. You know, and we're still always dealing with shit like this. Like, this is such an obvious, like, huge fraudulent problem with the way that our whole democratic process takes place. I think it's interesting comparing it to Brazil also. I mean, even just the way that Brazil runs its elections just seems like a way significantly more democratic than what we have here. Like, the idea of having like the runoff elections and the way that those elections work, where there's the initial round of voting. If someone gets 50% of the vote, good job, you win. If not, you go to a runoff with the person that came in second. Like, that seems like a way more democratic system, than electoral system, than anything that we have here. Right? We're moving on from the goose thing. No more geese. Okay? We don't need to talk about that anymore. Do you know what I mean, though? So I think this is a really important something to point out. about the results of the Quebec elections last night. Again, it was a disappointing night. It's disappointing that after several years of the CAQ and François Legault and the anti-immigrant stuff, the COVID response, the persecuting English people, there are so many glaring problems with the CAQ and their leadership, and the fact that they just cruised to a new majority has been very distressing and disappointing. But I think this is something that is worth pointing out as well, that there's this very serious problem with our actual democratic process, not just in Quebec, but in Canada in general. Which party is Legault? He's the CAQ. So I think this is something I would like to talk with Nora Loretto tomorrow. Let's see, actually. See, I don't know if there's going to be a lot of English language content that we can like take a look at that breaks this down. Here's Manon Massé. Manon Massé is very cool, actually. Manon Massé is the leader of Quebec Solidaire.
Manon Massé, co-spokesperson for Quebec Solidaire. Congratulations, you were re-elected at MNA tonight. How are you feeling? We heard Gabriel Nadeau-Dubois say in his victory speech that Quebec Solidaire has resisted to the blue wave that we saw across the province tonight.
Yeah, I totally agree with him. And what I'm so proud, it's Quebec Solidaire. When he say resist, it's mean for me we stay at our place, and I'm pretty proud of that because the other opposition have this tsunami in their face, and Quebec Solidaire stand up very proudly. And we have a new MNA with Aaron Boisy. I'm pretty proud of that too. And we'll see for Verdun. We don't know yet if Verdun which way it's gonna go. So yeah, we resist.
The polls, the latest polls before election, they were predicting, you were in second place, so they were predicting Quebec Solidaire possibly in the seat of the official opposition. How are you feeling about the fact that you haven't made it you haven't made that title tonight?
You know what? When you go in politics, it's because you want to win. So we work for that. We do everything we can. And tonight we see that Quebecers choose la CAQ and choose the Liberal as the official opposition. But I still be very proud that the other opposition lost some seats, and Quebec Solidaire we still, and maybe we're gonna win one. So I think it's when you got this kind of tsunami, we don't know what exactly could happen, but I'm pretty sure that it's the work, the groundwork that we made that keep us where we are.
What do you think is the future?
I like the tie as well. Yeah,
because we have been
it's a good look.
Some growth, and again that resistance this time around.
I can say that Quebec Solidaire always go the way that is our social project, our society project guide us, and that's why we say to Mr. Legault, how come you didn't change, as you said that you will do, the mode de scrutin? He promised it, but he didn't. So that's hard for democracy to feel something like this. Other point, and he know that Quebec Solidaire are very involved in the climate change fight. So he have to make the right decision to save the planet. And we will be there at the National Assembly to remember every day that it's a 2021 century issue, and we will be there to check him.
Okay, Madame Massé, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, it's all my pleasure.
Manon is cool. I like her. So I guess, and Quebec Solidaire is a cool party. Again, it's a social democrat party. I think, like I was saying, I think it's disappointing that they haven't really improved their status over the last few years of Legault and the CAQ. They are a cool party though, and like they have a lot of good stances. Like maybe they're not as radical as some people would like, but I think overall they're probably one of the more actually left-wing parties that you can actually vote for in compared to the Democrats. They're like fucking the Soviet Union. They're pretty radical in comparison to like what we have on offer generally, like in the States or in Canada, in terms of left-wing parties, which is generally just don't exist. Yeah, and that's a good point, Commissar Thembo. Like, unlike the modern NDP, they're actual social democrats. Like, which is like, considering we can't even get the NDP to embrace being social democrats anymore, and the only thing they seem to be capable of offering is like a kinder, gentler neoliberalism. That is, pretty decent in and of itself. The fact that they're actually literally still like a open sort of social democrat party. Yeah, and the co-leader is the former student protest leader as well. They've got pretty good climate policies. They have an interesting plan about if they ever actually form government. They want to like create a whole new Quebecois constitution. Like a whole citizens assembly similar to what they do in Cuba. It's a really interesting party. And I guess it was a little disappointing.
You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Part Ian, thanks for the 13 months of tier 1. Thank you, Part Ian. I appreciate that. So that's it. It was a little bit of a disappointing result. I did vote for QS last night. It was a disappointing result, but I think when you see this, and it was actually my partner that sent this to me and told me I should talk about it on the stream, and I think it's a very important point. When you see the way that like the comparison to the Liberal Party, the higher percentage of the vote share, significantly higher number of votes. Like this is the QS should be the official opposition party in Quebec. They've got the actual popular legitimacy to be the opposition party. And the fact that they're not, it speaks to the way that the democracy here and elsewhere in the country is just fucking totally broken and not in fact democratic at all. I'll put a pin in the Quebec stuff. I'm gonna explore this more tomorrow with just speaks to how little people want QS. Well, it's like they received the second highest number of votes in the election, so it's not totally accurate, I think. Obviously, there's a lot of work to be done when this conservative party led by François Legault, despite all the problems that they have and all the obvious issues that they have, the anti-immigrant policies, the Islamophobia, all that stuff. I mean, the fact that they just cruised to a new majority, that's a big problem. But there is a serious problem in our democracy here when this party that received by a significant margin the second highest number of votes, it has 10 less seats than the Liberal Party and is not the official opposition. I don't think that makes a whole lot of sense. I'm going to hopefully bring on Nora Loretto tomorrow to talk more about this and get more into this. I would like now to take a little bit of a break to... Yeah, fuck first past the post, seriously. I would like to talk a little bit about Brazil and the Lula election, and I know there's a video with Vijay Prashad and Noam Chomsky that I would like to take a look at. I can take a little break from talking. I've been talking about all kinds of stuff, fighting geese and electoral results and what have you now for quite a while. So let's watch that video with Noam Chomsky and Vijay Prashad talking about the Brazil election which looked like Lula was going to clean up in round 1, which didn't end up happening. Got a little bit of a scare, but hopefully, and maybe we can do a whole special election night thing with that at the end of October. Hopefully Lula's going to win in that runoff election at the end of October. So let's take a look at that.
This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman with Juan Gonzalez. In Brazil, voters head to the polls Sunday for an election that could see far-right President Jair Bolsonaro replaced by former President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva. Polls show Lula has a strong lead over Bolsonaro, but it remains unclear if he has enough support to win the 11-way race outright. If not, Brazil will hold a runoff election on October 30th. Lula has been running on a platform to reduce inequality, preserve the Amazon rainforest, and protect Brazil's indigenous communities. There's widespread fear in Brazil that Bolsonaro could attempt to stage a coup if he loses the election. We're joined right now by two guests, by Vijay Prashad, who's just back from Brazil. He's joining us from New York. He's just back from Brazil. And with us from...
I know Brazil is full of fascist right-wingers who would rather turn to fascism than vote for a moderate Socdem. That being said, I smell a lot of voter suppression, especially on a local, rural level. Yeah, I'm sure that there's an element of that as well, Commissar Thembo. I don't know if you saw the talking about the embedded fascist or right wingers in Brazil. I don't know if you saw the poll about all the German Brazilians. Those German Brazilians, they still love Bolsonaro. And it's like, yeah, no shit. No shit, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised that they do.
Minas Gerais, Brazil, is Noam Chomsky, world-renowned political dissident, linguist, and author, laureate professor in the Department of Linguistics at the University of Arizona, and professor emeritus at Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, where he taught for more than half a century.
Why didn't Amy say friend of the TRRS stream, Vijay Prashad? I'm not sure why. I'm pretty sure that's in Vijay Prashad's press credentials, so that definitely should have been indicated. Absolutely. I'm gonna have to have my team look into that. And by the way, VJ will be coming back on the stream. Okay? VJ is gonna be coming back on the stream soon. He had agreed to come on actually a couple weeks ago. I ended up taking some time off. Couldn't do it. VJ will be coming back on the stream soon though. I'll reach out to him this week and set up a new time to do that. Amy is known to not share clout. Very unfortunate. Very, very unfortunate. Roger going Democracy Now! To talk about the Quebecois elections. I would be so out of my element. Imagine if I tried to actually talk about that in a public platform. I would look absolutely ridiculous.
We welcome you both to Democracy Now! Noam, let's begin with you in Brazil. Can you talk about the significance of this election that is going to take place on Sunday and what this means for not only Brazil, but for the world?
It is very significant, not only for Brazil, but for the world. In Brazil, in many respects, but one of them is what you mentioned, the fate of the Amazon. Most of the Amazon region is in Brazil. Of the two candidates, one of them, the current president, Bolsonaro, is basically committed to destroying the Amazon. Under his years in office, there's been sharp acceleration with his approval of illegal logging.
We don't talk enough about how the Amazon is one of the world's last remaining carbon sinks as well. That there's a tipping point when it comes to the Amazon rainforest, which is going to lead to just absolutely catastrophic effects for the entire world. once it loses its ability to act as this carbon sink?
Mining, agribusiness, tax on the indigenous reserves. It's been known for some time that
Also
sooner
produces
or
like a
later,
fifth of the world's oxygen.
If
Seems important.
destruction of the forest continues, there won't be enough moisture produced to reproduce the Amazon. It'll turn to savanna. Regrettably, that's beginning to happen. Satellite and other studies have shown that in corners of the Amazon in Brazil, it's already happening. Tipping points may be coming soon, which would be irreversible. That's a catastrophe for Brazil, but in fact, for the entire world. The Amazon forests are one of the major carbon sinks. And
there we go.
It'll soon become a carbon producer. That's devastating for the world.
It's really ludicrous too, as well, when you look into like what a lot of the activity in terms of clear cutting the Amazon is being done to create pasture for cattle, for beef, for cattle and and selling beef. That's a big part of why that's going on, which is, I think, important. Like why understanding the role that our like food industry, agribusiness, and meat, our obsession with meat and beef is like, and I love a good burger and steak as much as anybody. Don't get me wrong. I really do. But we do need to understand the role that beef is and agribusiness is playing in creating these kind of cataclysmic environmental consequences. And meat production, a huge carbon producer. It's true. It's true. And again, I love a good burger. I really do. But we need to really be aware of this.
And those are Bolsonaro's policies. So for that reason alone, if he manages somehow to maintain power.
Sorry to keep stopping this as well. I'm going to get back to the video in just a moment. So, Rob, assuming Lula and the left win the presidential election, won't they be fairly gridlocked in the Senate, etc.? So it seems like it would take another election to get major things done. I'm not going to sit here and pretend to be an expert in Brazilian politics. That is my understanding of some of these results from this election, is that it still is packed with like reactionaries and all kinds of bad people in the Senate. So I think that is an element of that as well. I think overall, though, just having the left in power of the country in terms of like the geopolitical ramifications of that is really important. That's something that takes place kind of outside of like the actual political machinations inside the country. Just having another left-wing leader in Brazil, along with like, Colombia, Nicaragua, Bolivia, and the way this like new pink tide has been forming in Latin America, and creating this kind of alternative and that kind of a pushback against endless Western hegemony there. I think that would be one immediate side effect that would be really positive right away, even if they would be maybe hamstrung a little bit in terms of domestically what they could accomplish.
Or perhaps by a military coup, it'll be a disaster for the world. You might point out that there's a counterpart coming in the United States. The Republican Party, of course, is a 100% denialist party committed to maximizing the use of fossil fuels, eliminating the regulations that somehow mitigate their effects. If they come back into power.
Seriously, Colombia is a huge shock.
Again, hurtling.
Venezuela too, of course, part of that.
So for those reasons alone, the
grouping
next couple of months are of extreme significance. There are many other factors. The business community in Brazil doesn't like Bolsonaro. He's too vulgar and corrupt, but they like Lula even less because of his social democratic policies. So where they'll stand is not so clear. Also unclear is the nature of the military. The police, the various branches of the police tend to be quite supportive of Bolsonaro. The military is split. There's been a heavy military component in his government, unprecedented, in fact, but other elements of the top military command have been ambiguous about their status. So that's naturally a reason for concern. Bolsonaro has said openly and clearly that basically following Trump's line, probably with Trump's advisors at his elbow, saying that either he will win the election or the election was fraudulent and he won't accept it. In fact, he called all of the ambassadors to a special meeting to tell them that, which shocked the diplomatic community and did lead to negative responses. Whether he'll keep to that or not, nobody really knows. So there is a kind of background tension in the atmosphere, but I should say that from the little that we can see on the streets in the community, it looks pretty normal. So if there are concerns, they're not very openly expressed. There are, last night, there was a major debate, went on for hours. There's demonstrations and so on. So the whole matter is very much in people's minds, clearly. But if the polls are anywhere near accurate, Lula might win on the first round, but almost certainly would on the second. But then there's the open question of how Bolsonaro and the forces behind him would react to this. That's pretty much the current situation.
Well, Noam Chomsky, following up on that, the significance politically for Latin America and the world of a Lula victory, given the fact that we've seen now Latin America go from the early pink tide of the early 2000s, then there was a resurgence of right-wing government and lawfare actions throughout the region, and now we're seeing almost every major country in Latin America voting in left-wing governments. Mexico, Colombia, Venezuela, Argentina, Peru, and Brazil, of course, is the largest country. This is a region with
very exciting.
No nuclear weapons, with no major armed conflicts in the region.
This is some
right
guy,
now.
Rob Russo,
What
some
would
leftist based in
Lula
Canada.
coming to victory
I was
mean for
turned
the
on to this
consolidation?
sick individual, and I found this.
Lucid, thank you so much for the raid. Lucid Fox. Get in here, Raiders.
You can count on me.
Hello.
You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Hello, Raiders.
What up, chat? Hello, Rob.
Smash the follow button. Please smash the follow button. Hello, Risk Inverse. Thank you for the 16 months tier 1. Thank you, Risk Inverse. Welcome, Raiders. Thank you. Thank you for joining me. I'm Rob. You may know me from twitter.com. You might know me from the Insurgents podcast. You might know, don't hit the follow button if you've already followed, because then you'll unfollow. We don't want that. You might know me from this Twitch channel. Of course, our friend Lucid was recently a guest on the Insurgents podcast. Wonderful episode with our friend Lucid Fox. Really good stuff. Thank you for joining us, everyone. How was the stream today? How was Lucid's stream? What did you talk about? What is going on? We're just talking about elections. We talked about the Quebec election. I'm, of course, in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. We just had some elections last night. We briefly touched on that. Going to get more into that tomorrow, I think, with a special guest, if you want to hear about that. Now we're moving on to Brazil, talking about the Lula versus Bolsonaro showdown in Brazil. We're watching this clip, Democracy Now!, with Noam Chomsky and Vijay Prashad talking about this. Of course, prior to the election, but I think it's an important video to watch. That's what we're doing. That's the update. We shop for kilts, so that sounds cool. Question for you. Question for the new chatters, okay? Question for the new chatters. Do you think that I, Rob Rousseau, could defeat a goose in single combat. Question for you. And again, I don't want to ever be in this situation. I'm hoping never to have to be in this situation. I think personally, if I was forced to be in that situation, I could easily defeat a goose. I think that's my stance. Interested to hear your views on this, though. You could do it, but it wouldn't be pretty. Thank you, Risk Inverse. What's your plan of attack? It would just be using the significant weight advantage. I've got a significant weight advantage of that goose, and I would use that to my advantage. Show me your biceps. I can't do that because I'm wearing this shirt right now, and if I were to flex in this shirt, the whole thing would just rip off. And I like this shirt, so I don't really want to have to do that. You'll have to take my word for it, though. Don't make me Hulk out on stream. Yes, but you'd come out heavily battle scarred and maimed for life. Okay, well, I'll take that. I'll take that. So the consensus seems to be that yes, I could. Okay. The chat earlier was not very supportive about this. Not very supportive on this. The consensus seems to be from these new better chatters that I could indeed defeat a goose. We already did the poll, Badrino, and I was betrayed. I was betrayed by this community.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Lucky 13.
Was viciously and brutally betrayed. Much like Jesus. Much like Jesus. I was betrayed by my own community. GMO Radio, thank you for the 13 months resub at tier 2. Thank you, GMO. I appreciate that. Thank you. Anyway, I'm glad the consensus seems to be with these new chatters that I could defeat a goose. Most people rejected his message. Rob finally becomes an egomaniac and compares himself to Jesus. I've probably done that many times before. If I'm being honest, I've probably done that multiple times before on this very stream. Important point note to new chatters: it's not a cult. Very true. Very true. Hello, Dimitri. What's up? Welcome. Anywho. That's what we're watching this Democracy Now! Clip with Noam Chomsky and Vijay Prashad. I could defeat a goose if it came down to it. Chad betrayed you 3 times before the goose honked. In fighting this goose, do you need to survive to win? No, it's a fight to the death. What have I missed? Brazil elections right now. We just got into that, Dimitri. There's been a lot of nonsense going on, and I talked a little bit about the Quebec elections. I've talked a little bit about the Quebec elections, but we're going to get more into that tomorrow as well. These are the most pressing questions we ponder in Canada land. It's true. It's very true. Teach a man to fight a goose. So that's it. I could defeat a goose. And here's the video that we're watching with Vijay Prashad.
We simply use the computer to mark up the size of the account.
Mutual death.
Dimitri, thank you for the 200 friend coin. Perhaps that would be the result. Perhaps it would be. And Miragons, you'll get no argument there. A goose would instantly kill Noam. He would last about 5 seconds in that situation. Rob, when I was a kid, I had a neighbor who broke a goose's neck. Apparently, according to the chat, it's this impossible thing to do. It's just not possible. I don't know. Apparently, according to the chat, it's just this complete impossible task. Anyway, we're not getting back into this. I'm sorry I even brought this up.
Use the computer to mark up the size of the account.
Betting on the goose.
Ice Tray, thank you for the 200 friend coin. Just over your knee looking by a 2x4. We're not getting into this anymore, okay? I regret bringing it up again. I regret bringing it up again. Let's get back to this video about the Brazil elections and other important issues that we're hearing about from Noam Chomsky and Vijay Prashad. Let's get back to that now. And we'll have no more of this goose silliness.
Of this left-wing trend in Latin America.
Yes, you can add Chile to the list.
Although Boric has been kind of
Brazil
disappointing.
is, of course, the
Boric.
largest, most important country in South and Latin America. And the direction in which Brazil goes is sure to have a major impact on these tendencies that you describe. Of course, they're bitterly opposed by most of the business world, by the international investment community. What happens in Brazil is certain to have a large-scale effect on whether this.
Boric has been showing no solidarity with any other left-wing Latin American leaders, and I'm sure the imperialists will appreciate that. I'm sure they'll appreciate your complete inability to stand up to them, and they'll say, "Well, this is a guy we can work with," and they won't still just work overtime to destroy you immediately, to institute some fucking pro-business lunatic, or just coup him if it comes down to it. I'm sure his inability to show basic solidarity with Venezuela or Nicaragua will buy him a lot of credibility with the imperialists in the region. Let's see how that plays out.
Mildly left social democratic tendency will continue to develop and evolve. That's very important on the international scene as well. It'll, for example, affect the character of BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, now Indonesia, developing possibly independent force in global affairs. During the early years of the century, when Lula was in power, he managed to give the BRICS alignment a significant role in world affairs. In fact, Brazil became perhaps the most respected country internationally under Lula and his foreign minister, Celso Amorim. And if he returns to office, that could give an impetus to the further development of BRICS as a quite significant element in international affairs. That's connected with.
Did you see the tweet Susan Sarandon shared that got the libs all hot and bothered? I think I did see it, but the liberals get mad at Susan Sarandon no matter what she does, so that's not really surprising. Yeah, and historically, siding with imperialists has never had a negative outcome in the global south. Well, what is that Kissinger quote? What's that Kissinger quote again? To be an enemy of the United States can be dangerous, but to be a friend is even more dangerous. Something along those lines. And Boric will probably find this out the hard way.
Much broader tendencies, much broader issues about multipolarity and unipolarity in international affairs. The United States, of course, is working hard to maintain what's called a unilateral world order. Other elements in the world, other components of the world are not going along with that. Ukraine is a central part of that issue. About 90% of the countries of the world are not going along with the US-UK position on Ukraine, which is basically continue the war to weaken Russia and no negotiations. Even in Europe, in Germany,
the libs hate Noam when he gets talking about this, don't they?
About over 3/4 of the German population wants to move to negotiations now. All of these things are taking place in the background, and what's happening in Brazil will have a significant impact on the direction in which they go. So there are many large issues at stake, also just domestically in Brazil.
And yeah, I know when it comes to Russia and Ukraine, yeah, there may be citizens in Germany who are worried about freezing this winter, who are anxious for this thing to move on into negotiations so the war can end. But I'm sorry to those folks, but did they ever think about like what random people in like fucking Alberta with Ukraine flags in the bio, what they think? What do they think about this? Huh? Who like, you know, who cares about what Ukrainians think, what Germans think, what Russians think, what people that are actually affected by this shit think? Did they think about how that matters to like people in fucking Massachusetts that are like, no negotiations ever, no? What about them? Don't they have the biggest say in this? And I think they should. And that's one thing that Noam refuses to acknowledge. Very unfortunate. Tanky behavior from Noam.
Brazil has extraordinary inequality, kind of like the United States in that respect. Enormous amount. It's potentially a very rich country. A century ago, it was called the Colossus of the South. It's never been realized, part because of the avarice of the wealthy sector, which has basically no commitment to the country. And that will move in one or the other direction, depending on the outcome of this election. So there is quite a lot at stake, locally in Brazil, in Latin America altogether, as you mentioned, and even globally, because of the role of the Latin American countries, Brazil in the lead, in setting the stage for the next phase of global order.
Noam Chomsky, on the issue of Bolsonaro perhaps not accepting election results, and he is in charge of the elections now as president. Earlier in the campaign, he said, only God will remove me from power. The army is on our side. It's an army that doesn't accept corruption, that doesn't accept fraud. Are you concerned that he will not accept the election? And also, how much has Trump and his rejection of the elections and spreading the big lie influenced Bolsonaro, empowered him?
Well, Trump is his ideal, and there's good reason to suppose that Trump's circle of advisors is playing a role in Bolsonaro's current decision-making, as they pretty clearly did in the 2018.
Old Dutch, the host of the East is a podcast. I just had him on the show last week. You must have missed that one. We had a great conversation about Iran. And we've been going back and forth in the DMs about the info wars going on with Iran right now. Really, really, if you missed that one last week, Old Dutch, I would recommend you go check it out because it was really, really good. Really good interview.
Election, which he managed to win, but on reasons we don't have time to go through. So he might try to follow the Trump model.
That's right, Padrino.
His statement about only God can remove him is a Trump-like appeal to a large sector of his voting base.
Yeah, ICB3, they have a formation creation myth. I guess you're talking about the Brazilian military, about communists invading quarters and killing sleeping recruits. I remember reading about that in Jakarta Method. I don't know if you read this, if that's where you got that info, but very, very interesting. And very common in a lot of like fascist military dictatorships as well. This kind of fear of the coming communist takeover, how that's used to justify all kinds of repression and murder and terrible, terrible activities. Indonesia as well is the exact same thing. I missed it, but I saw the VOD, which is how I found his podcast. Really like the host, so thanks. Yeah, of course, Old Dutch. Really, really great podcast. East is a podcast. Highly recommended.
A large sector of his voting base is evangelicals, right-wing Christian groups, much as in the United States and Trump. So references to God are obligatory, charges that the PT, Lula's party, will undermine the church. All of these charges which we're familiar with in the United States are part of the Bolsonaro campaigning. What he'll do, we don't know. A large majority of the population in Brazil, according to the polls, is concerned, seriously concerned, that there might be violence at the time of the elections or in the aftermath. So there's concern, there's reason for it. The alliance with the Republican Party, the Trump-owned Republican Party, is pretty clear. It's not hidden. So there are similarities in the United States and Brazil that are certainly worth merit attention.
Vijay Prashad, I'd like to bring you into the discussion here on Brazil. You were there recently. Your assessment of the importance of this election, and also to what degree is the electorate voting for Lula and the Workers' Party, or predominantly for Lula? There have been some reports that his popularity is much greater than that of the Workers' Party because of all of the years of corruption scandals
Fresh
that
cut for
occurred
VJ.
while the party was in power. Wondering your views on those two things.
It's great to be with you, and it's great to have Noam from São Paulo, from Minas Gerais. The first thing I'd like to say is Lula is an extraordinary person, an extraordinary campaigner, an extraordinary politician. These things matter. I covered Lula's first election campaign when he first won in the 2000s, was in Brazil during his second presidency, and covered this year some of his rallies.
That could do
and
that would be
public
such a dark
appearances,
outcome.
and also had the opportunity to briefly speak with him. He is an extraordinary person. He's extraordinarily charismatic, touches the hearts of people. This is what I suppose in the United States is called retail politics. Also, Lula is this time running to the left of Lula the president. He's made it very clear that questions of social justice will be at the forefront of his presidency. He's made it clear that he once again wants to have Brazil be an important player in the process of South American integration and in the revival of the BRICS. Now, it's really important that we concentrate on the attempts to undermine Lula. It's the military, of course, but got to pay attention to the fact, as Juan said earlier, this issue of lawfare is on the table. One of the things I learned in talking to...
Also important to point out as well that like the Lula's successor, Dilma Rousseff, that whole like corruption scandal that toppled that administration, that was, in a way, like a soft coup that was rubber stamped by the Obama administration. Right? As much as they love to lecture about democracy and the way that they're against fascism and all this shit, that was a soft coup rubber stamped by the Obama State Department. Should not forget the role that Obama and the United States government played in helping that along. But will Democracy Now! Ask VJ about Yacht Rock? This is the only thing. This is the only kind of content you can get from this channel, Starlight, as you know. But I always just want to point that out. Want to point that out. Even, and like you're pointing out, ICB3, Lula is not even. He's a social democrat, and it's not even that is like he's some extreme far left wing person. But you can see how even mild social democracy in Brazil or anyone else in Latin America is completely unacceptable to the United States government and the United States State Department.
Fernando Haddad, who ran for president in 2018 and is now running to be the governor of São Paulo state. What Haddad told me is that the key issue in this election is, yes, to elect Lula, but also to get an impeachment-proof majority in the legislature. Because what happened to President Dilma Rousseff is on the minds of everybody. You can win an election, you can push an agenda, but you'll get removed by a legislature which is committed to a very right-wing politics, and to somehow drive a impeachment-proof legislature is important. And that's where the assessment about the Workers' Party comes in. Is the party going to be strong enough to elect its candidates across the country, or will it again rely merely on winning the presidency? So that first issue of winning in the legislature is key. You know, when Lula comes to office this time, he has already pledged to start a conversation about, for instance, a Latin American currency called the SUR. This was tried.
And look at that, Sam Sider. As soon as you bring it up, VJ mentions the same thing. I remember Michael Brooks bringing up that Obama turned on Lula once he wanted to have a different world reserve currency. And that's what it always comes down to, right? Anyone, no matter how mild they are, that pushes back on this endless Western hegemony, whether it comes to energy, whether it comes to the currency markets, they will always receive significant pushback from the United States State Department. That's true, Starlight, as well. Lula is more to the left than Bernie, and American liberals are cheering him on to win while bemoaning Sanders and his politics at home. But as soon as Lula, even if Lula did come into power and started, pushing back on U.S. hegemony, or started asking questions about United States foreign policy, or not taking a black and white view of Ukraine, for example, they'll be calling him a tanky. They'll start to be calling him a tanky. Almost got you a raid from Midwestern Marks, but he didn't know the raid command, I think. That's all right. That's all right. I like Eddie from Midwestern Marks, I must admit. I'm a fan of Eddie from Midwestern Marks. He's a problematic fave of mine. Lula got imprisoned by the CIA and was released by the CIA. A deal went down. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's not as simple, I think, as the CIA or the U.S. State Department pulling all those strings, but clearly was rubber stamped. Like, if the Obama administration thought that it was somehow undemocratic or unfair, they would have been pushing back on that, which they did not do. So it's at the very least they rubber stamped what was going on and approved of it. First, win the election that decided against you. Second, fight against the reactionaries within your establishment. Third, do not get IND'd. Lastly, go full communist. Easy. I don't know why no one follows this basic strategy. It's right there. It's right there for anyone that wants to follow it.
Previously under Hugo Chavez called the Sucre, but the Sur, if Brazil puts its considerable resources behind it, it's going to be a really important development for Latin America. And, we need to understand that, as Noam said, the mood in the world is contrary to being pushed around by the United States or its allies. People are looking for some other kind of leadership. And the respect that Lula has, which the other leaders, let's say in the BRICS countries, don't have, that respect that Lula has. Lula is the first Brazilian president whose name is known in other countries in the global south. He's going to leverage that
Bolsonaro has
respect,
Guaido on his side
to drive a multilateral agenda
it's very powerful.
in world affairs. I think that's going to be of great significance and importance. Again, when he came to power in the 2000s, the mood was not like that around the world. Now we see the mood in South Africa.
That is also very true. I think it's a very different environment. Lula winning now would be very, very different from Lula winning, 10, 15 years ago, whenever it was. It's a very, very different environment globally. It's a different environment in Latin America. It's not the unipolar world anymore. It's a very drastically shifting geopolitical landscape. So I think imagining that Lula or any other leader like that would just go right back to the exact kind of ways that they were governing before, I don't think that's going to be accurate, right? It's a completely different set of circumstances. Mark Hamill, I saw this too, Relic. Mark Hamill promoting to give Ukraine more drones and comparing Russia to the Star Wars empire, just to then endorse Lula shows how stupid liberals are. Yeah, that was very stupid. Mark Hamill, who doesn't, apparently the star of Star Wars, who apparently doesn't fucking understand who the Empire in Star Wars was meant to represent. He's there comparing Russia right now to the Empire. Now to take a big sip of blue milk and then take a look into what George Lucas meant the Empire was supposed to represent. It wasn't Russia. That's the hint to Mark. It was not Russia. Come on, Mark. Come on, sir.
Even in India, governed by a right-wing government, the government has said, look, we are not going to involve ourselves in Europe's wars. We have our own problems. We have our own conflicts. And I believe that a presidency from Lula, a revival of the BRICS, will allow some of that mood to be captured by somebody who comes to world affairs with a great deal of legitimacy and love and in a sense, respect.
And Vijay, following up on that, the issue of a more multilateral world that you mentioned. One of the things that's happened in Latin America in the recent decades is the increasing visibility and investment of China throughout Latin America, allowing many of these governments, whether of the right or the left, to be more independent of financing and loans and investment from the U.S. and Europe. I'm wondering your sense of, again, if a Lula victory, what would happen in terms of this trend of China getting more involved in Latin America's economies?
Well, it's important to say that even during the presidency of Jair Bolsonaro, China continued to be a major trading partner with Brazil. And Mr. Bolsonaro was very careful not to come out with any kind of frontal attack on China. Let's be quite clear that the arrival of Chinese commercial economic ties with most countries in Latin America is inevitable. It's clear, there's a reason why a country like Argentina joined China's Belt and Road Initiative. That's because the Chinese have investment capital available. The Chinese have a large market for the commodities produced in Latin America. In a way, China is offering much more to these countries in terms of trade, development, investment, and so on than the United States. That's just a fact. The question is that in the last period, from Trump onward, the United States has attempted to tell countries in Latin America that they should stop trading with China. This is what happened with El Salvador, for instance, over
You're not allowed to do that.
For a Pacific port. The United States tried to impose on the government of El Salvador and, in fact, succeeded to break a deal with the Chinese. Interesting thing is, China
Isn't there
is
someone
not
you
telling
forgot to
anybody
ask?
to break deals with the United States. In fact, Argentina, a Belt and Road partner, went back to the IMF this year. A very poor deal, by the way, and it's a deal that requires far more scrutiny, once more austerity on the Argentinian people. But Lula has made it clear they're going to continue, in that sense, Bolsonaro's policy of trading with China. But there'll be a kind of friendlier attitude to China. And I'm very much hopeful that if there's a revitalization of the BRICS, this attempt to demonize countries in Eurasia, particularly China, will find less of an audience than it finds even now. It's quite unfortunate that the United States has ramped up a kind of demonization policy, suggesting that, the Chinese are out there to steal people's privacy and so on.
And yeah, Commissar Thembo, I think that one of the things that is a source of maybe frustration for all of us sometimes is the fact that China has this policy of non-intervention in other countries' affairs. They're not, even though they've shown solidarity with Palestine and they've made certain statements, they're starting to push back on Western hegemony. Clearly have this policy of they're not going to side with revolutionary movements in another country's affairs, regardless of the politics of it. I think sometimes we look at that from our perspective and say, why don't they take more of these forceful foreign policy positions or try to intervene in these countries in this way? And it can be a little bit frustrating sometimes. Or when they do business with countries that are not good, like Saudi Arabia, like Israel, like Brazil under Bolsonaro. That seems to be part of their global strategy, though, is we're not going to interfere in your affairs. We'll do business with you if you want to make deals with us. That has led to good outcomes, I think, in a number of instances in Africa and throughout Latin America and throughout this Belt and Road Initiative. But it can be a source of frustration as well. If you want China to have some kind of like overt anti-imperialist foreign policy, there you'll end up being disappointed because it just doesn't seem like that's part of their strategy for now or maybe forever. But I hear what you're saying, though.
This is not a credible line of argument in countries where the Chinese
It's where the
have come,
DPRK is
put
never.
money on
They
the
never
table
miss.
through the People's
They
Bank
never
of
miss.
China, done currency swaps and so on, and said you don't need to do austerity. Here's investment money. It's not credible when the United States comes there and says, China is here to steal your house. That's not a credible argument. But it does create a lot of instability. It creates a lot of tension for countries. And I think if Lula comes to power, or not just Lula, we see this already with Gustavo Petro in Colombia. When people come to power of that ilk who want an independent foreign policy for their country, they understand that next year, 2023, is the 200th anniversary of the Monroe Doctrine. They want to go beyond the Monroe Doctrine.
The global Monroe Doctrine.
Joe Biden
I talked about
said
this
that
with VJ.
Latin America is not the United States' backyard, it's the United States' front yard. For God's sake, President Biden, Latin America is nobody's yard. These are sovereign countries that must be permitted to produce their own relations, whether it's for trade or political relations. The United States cannot continue to essentially, as Noam says, be the godfather and tell countries what to do.
We're talking to Vijay Prashad and Noam Chomsky. They've written a book together. It's called The Withdrawal, Iraq, Libya, Afghanistan, and the Fragility of U.S. Power.
There's more stuff here, actually, that I would like to continue watching because they're going to get into Russia, Ukraine, and I think we can get into that as well. And if we can finish off with this for the day.
This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org. I'm Amy Goodman. We continue our conversation with Vijay Prashad and Professor Noam Chomsky, who've co-authored the new book, The Withdrawal, Iraq, Libya, Afghanistan, and the Fragility of U.S. Power. Juan Gonzalez and I spoke to them Friday, just as the Russian President Vladimir Putin was holding a signing ceremony to mark the annexation of 4 areas of occupied Ukraine.
Have we already talked about the DPRK's missile test or whatever? No, we haven't, and I don't feel the need to talk about it. They're allowed to test missiles, right? When America wants to test missiles, they fucking test missiles on whatever they want. They blow up entire islands. They give radiation poisoning to indigenous populations. If DPRK wants to test out some missiles, all the power to them. They should go for it, right? They're the country that's under threat. They're the country that's surrounded militarily. They're the country that has the United States military parked right on their border, pumping billions of dollars into the fake country of South Korea, and has missiles aimed at their country all the time, right? The reason that they haven't been invaded, they haven't been invaded and overrun by the United States is because they've got nukes and because they've got missiles. So if they want to test missiles, they should fucking go for it, No problem here. No problem with me. He checks the map of DPRK military bases around the world versus U.S. military bases around the world. Absolutely, yeah. And test them specifically over Abe's grave. That's the thing. I don't want to hear people in Japan complaining about Korean missile tests. You just take a look into what Japan did in Korea. And I think there's a very good and significant reason for people in North Korea or elsewhere in Korea. As we all know, there is only one country called Korea. There's no such thing as North and South Korea. It's completely arbitrarily invented by Western imperialism, these two countries. And there's very legitimate reasons for them not to like either America or Japan. And so, yeah, they should fucking go ahead and test whatever missiles they want. If they didn't have these missiles, there's no reason that Kim Jong-un would have been treated the same way as Gaddafi, right? What happened to Gaddafi? Always, and John Bolton specifically talking about, during the Trump era, talking about North Korea, wanted to inflict the Libya model on North Korea. Well, what happened to Gaddafi, who tried to be a friend to the West, who tried to give up his nukes? Well, he got sodomized by a bayonet and was murdered brutally. And then you had fucking Hillary Clinton doing like the L dance on his corpse. So, yeah, they should test all the missiles they want.
We simply use the computer to mark up the size of the account.
Preach.
Thank you, Dimitri, for the 200 friend coin. I'm pretty sure Left is Best, the Libya model John Bolton statement was about North Korea. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. It's in the Washington Post. So yeah, it's not surprising whatsoever that the DPRK wants nukes and wants to test missiles and has a strong military. It's not surprising at all, considering the ways that people in the United States and people connected to Western imperialism talk about this place. They should be testing missiles, and in fact, they should test more missiles, actually. Anyway, we're getting to the spicy part of the discourse now.
Later that day, Ukraine would apply for NATO membership. I asked Professor Chomsky about U.S. media coverage of the Ukraine war and how it's getting it wrong.
To begin with, suggest a considerable measure of caution with the way things are being reported in the United States. To take one quite significant case, there's been a large amount of, you can say, euphoria over the claim that major countries in the world, or a very important country of the global south, of course, it's claimed that Modi, president of India, censured Putin at a meeting in Samarkand, where he told Putin that India does not support the Russian position. If you look, I took the trouble of looking this up on the Indian government official website. What happened is quite different. The Western propaganda.
U.S. and Mexican conservative media going after AMLO now for basically proposing peace and criticizing NATO. It's amazing, technomancy, how controversial it has become to say, like, I think there should be diplomacy to end the war in Korea, especially in the West. The only solution you're allowed to advocate for in the West is more arms to Ukraine, endless military supplies, endless billions of dollars in arms to Ukraine until they just destroy and defeat Russia. I guess that's the only possible thing you're ever allowed to suggest. And anything beyond that is like tanky Putinism or whatever it is. You know, it's fucking absurd. And we're going to get to this a little bit more after this conversation.
And has seized upon half a dozen words in which Modi said, war is not the answer. And that was taken to be a break with Russia. If you read the rest of the text, practically a love letter to Putin about how wonderful our relations are and how they'll get even better and how supportive we are of you and so on. That part was left out of, which is practically the whole message, was left out of the Western reporting, of the U.S. reporting. So you have to be, it's one example of many of considerable care that has to be taken. Fact is that internationally, at least, the United States and Britain are pretty isolated on this. Europe is sort of going along, but the population is not supportive of that position. As I mentioned, over the most important country, Germany, over 3/4 is in favor of moving to negotiations right away. Same in Slovakia. President Macron of France, who's been the most dedicated to seeking to find a negotiated settlement, has recently reiterated his belief that the prospects diminish as the war continues. There are still openings.
None of these people that like actually are affected by this have asked, as I said before, none of them have asked like NAFO fellas located in fucking Virginia what they think about it, though. Right? Then that's the real problem. Those are the ones that really get to decide what happens here.
The United States is, and Britain, it's
you can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Bobo is back in a big way.
Thank you, Goat's Head, for the 11 months of Tier 1. Thank you very, very much. Abolish NAFO. Seriously. Jesus Christ. Oh, NAFO. Just so much secondhand embarrassment over all that stuff. It's amazing that you get scolded for not having literally the farthest right neocon take on Ukraine while the rest of the world is more measured about it. We're in a cursed country. It's true. And in fact, this is something I'm going to look at after this, but you'll see opinion polls. It's fucking conservatives are the ones that are more leaning towards why are we sending all this aid to Ukraine? Like, why are we doing this? The pro-Putin conservatives, it's something that people are very concerned about right now. And that is, I'm going to get to this after, but that's a real problem. The fact that the only ones that are able to articulate the position are these far right isolationist types. That is a real problem because people are going to start getting the message when they realize that they themselves are getting fucked. Everything is more expensive. Their quality of life is going down. Meanwhile, the government has this endless supply of funds going to Ukraine. Then they're saying, why am I getting screwed in this situation? And the only one having actual answers to that are these far right conservatives. That is going to be a huge problem. Yeah, maybe, and any left wing voice that says anything immediately gets shouted down and called a tanky or whatever. Full uniformity across whatever remains of the professional left about this, and the only ones articulating this why are we doing this? Why do we care about what happens in eastern Ukraine so much? The only one making this position are these far-right lunatics. That's going to have major, major negative consequences. We're going to get to this after, though. Let's hear from Noam and VJ.
Are pretty much isolated in their commitment to continuing the war, whatever the effects, in order to severely weaken Russia. Are there still negotiation possibilities? There's only one way to find out. That's to try. If you refuse to try, of course, there's no option, no possibilities. There's so little reporting about this in the United States that one can say little with confidence. But we do have credible information that there were Russia-Ukraine negotiations under Turkish auspices in April, which may have been getting somewhere. As soon as they were announced, Boris Johnson, then Prime Minister of England, flew to Ukraine and apparently informed Ukraine that the West, meaning the United States and Britain, would not favor negotiations. He was followed directly by Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, who presumably gave the message that it is he's repeated over and over, and that is now official U.S. policy, that the war must continue to weaken Russia severely, and it follows that no time for negotiations. Well, none of this can be said with certainty because there is so little commentary and reporting, and what there is often highly distorted, as in the important example that I just gave. But the fact is that sooner or later, there will have to be some kind of negotiated settlement, unless one side or the other just capitulates.
You got to fight till the last Ukrainian.
Virtually logic.
You tanky.
If the longer the war goes on, the longer it's maintained,
no capitulation, says guy from fucking Virginia.
For a diplomatic settlement diminish. That's almost automatic. So before the invasion, there seemed to be pretty good prospects for a settlement, or more or less in the framework of the Minsk Agreement, under the auspices of France and Germany, to which Russia and Ukraine theoretically accepted, though didn't implement it. The U.S. role was, to put it mildly, not constructive in that respect. It's an understatement. As the war continued, their prospects do diminish, but they're still there. Late March, President Zelensky produced some proposals which are not very far from the Macron proposals for settlement. Didn't get anywhere. There was the April case. We don't know what's happening since. The longer the war persists, the more destruction and devastation there will be, the more what's called collateral damage elsewhere.
That's what the NAFO fellas want. Even though they care to claim about people in Ukraine, this is what they want. They want more violence. Endless. Right? No capitulation, no negotiation. Continue turning the country into a fucking meat grinder. That's the only way to defeat Putler, says someone who is not affected by this in any way. You live in fucking Canada. You live in the United States. You're not impacted by this whatsoever. You know? And they're the ones that are just like, any negotiation. No. I refuse. It's like, you have nothing to do with this. You have nothing to do with this. Who even asked you? It's so bizarre.
Because of the closing off of Black Sea exports.
Anything less is appeasement. We know what happens when you appease the bad guy.
But we have little information about it. Threat of nuclear war increases, and perhaps most significantly of all, and least discussed, is the fact that as the war continues, the limited efforts to deal with the overwhelming crisis of climate destruction, those reverse. Instead of moving to limit fossil fuels, what's happening is expansion of fossil fuel production, exuberance in the offices of ExxonMobil, Chevron, and the rest, opening new fields for development, expansion of reduction of restrictions, search for new sources of oil. Some of what's happening is, this means basically the end of organized human life on Earth. We're not talking about something.
In Crabbill, this is a really good point. The war is not popular with European people. It might be anecdotal, and I don't think it is. I think it's a widespread phenomenon, and it's going to become more widespread the more when winter comes and people are not able to heat their fucking homes. Might be anecdotal, but having family in France and Germany and following media there, the vibe over there is that most people want to be able to warm their home this winter and don't want nuclear strikes. I think that's pretty reasonable. I think that's a pretty reasonable thing. But again, the people that are the most adamant about this, that the war must continue at all costs, and any negotiation is appeasement, the people that are most adamant about this are people in Canada and the United States who are not impacted by it in any way. And it's basically a spectator sport for them. It's like they're munching popcorn and they're just like getting hard over all the fucking dead Russians. That's what it is. Who are not impacted by it in any way. Not by the energy costs, not by the vicinity to the violence, nothing. You know? And they're just like, they'll sit on Twitter all day and join fake propaganda outlets like NAFO to like target anyone that suggests that maybe it might be a good idea to try and take efforts to stop the war rather than have it continue. My sis in Berlin doesn't even know how she'll be able to heat her apartment. No, like it's going to get, this winter in Western Europe is going to be insane. I don't think any of us have like really grappled with that. And like we in Canada and the United States, we're not even really affected by it. But people are going to lose their fucking minds this winter, which is coming up very shortly. You know, we haven't even begun to imagine, I think, the consequences that we're going to see, not just for people not being able to heat their homes, but the amount of discontent that that's going to create. Again, last week I was talking about the yellow vest protest in France over like a mild increase in energy prices, in passing along the costs of climate change to like consumers and average people. The amount of outrage and discontent that this creates. That's only going to be a small fraction of, I think, what we're going to see in Europe in the coming months. And like I've been saying, like I've been warning about, when the left has been systematically crushed in a lot of these places, and this neoliberal kind of establishment in Germany and France and elsewhere is swept away by this, who is going to be left to pick up the pieces? This is the really dangerous moment that we're in. Definitely a lot of people think it's all because of this crazy man, Putin. It all hinges on what he decides. And I'm like, not exactly. Western countries are literally actively participating in this. We're not only actively participating in it, but we actively helped push things to this exact point, right? We have been arming and funding these groups in eastern Ukraine for the last 10 years. It's not even that we're participating in it now and funding the war now. We deliberately poked and pushed things to this exact point. And now we're just washing our hands of it and pretending that it's all the result of the whims of some madman, you know? It's completely backwards. Gonna shake the shit out of the welfare state system throughout Europe so we can sell them the American way. Exactly. Yeah, for sure. And not just that, but we can sell them fracked gas from Canada and from the United States at a huge increase in cost. No, I'm pretty sure it's just because Putin is gay. Yeah, that could be another possibility. That could be another possibility, definitely. Jesus, what a crazy situation this is going to develop into.
Minor. We have a narrow window in which the severe problems of heating the climate can be dealt with.
Putin wants this picture off the internet.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Putin has super dementia cancer. He has syphilis. Thank you, Dimitri, for the gifted sub. I really appreciate that. Thank you. The U.S. deindustrialized Europe. Europe was used to getting and dependent on cheap Russian fuel, about a 20% discount. Their supply is permanently damaged. And if they were getting ideas about continuing to take that Russian gas, you got the good old US of A ensuring that they're not going to be able to do so by sabotaging the Nord Stream pipeline, which we all know was done by the US. Everyone knows it. I mean, it's like it's a fucking joke to even pretend that and there was any other possibility of what happened with that. Like, come on.
Are the chances of survival of organized human life on Earth? That's what we're facing. As I say, sometimes what's happening is simply surreal. You hardly can find words to describe it. Take just the last couple of weeks, new scientific reports appeared with regard to the Eastern Mediterranean, not very far from Ukraine. They found that projections about what was going to happen in the region were way off, much too conservative. Now, new studies indicate that by the end of the century, heating in the Eastern Mediterranean region will be about twice as high as what was thought before.
It's such a mind fuck that now it's so controversial to be anti-war and to not want thousands of people to die nuked. Like now it means being pro-Putin and not having compassion for Ukraine is to say that maybe some compromise and yes, even territory loss would be better than the other outcomes. It's completely backwards, crab out. It really is. Which is something that I've been talking about, I feel like, as long as this conflict has been going on, you know? Ironically, the people that are like, I care about Ukraine the most, that's why I support endless supply of billions of dollars of weapons to this country to turn it into this endless blood-soaked quagmire meat grinder. And how contradictory that is to claim to care about people's lives in Ukraine while simultaneously encouraging the country to turn even more into a fucking disaster hellhole war zone than it currently is. So the world should just roll over to Putin. Well, I don't think that's really what's going on, though. That's the problem. And I think holding buried sheet, I think that's kind of the problem that we're ignoring, which is that we in the West, Canada and the United States, NATO, have fanned the flames of this conflict for years now. And what we're seeing now is the result of that. And, you know, the point that I was making prior to this invasion, and I stand by this, as controversial as it has become to say this, I stand by it though, which is that any country in the world, if you look at Russia's perspective of this and you see the role that NATO has played, pushing up to their borders, arming and funding Ukrainian militants, any country in the world would have viewed that as a legitimate threat to their security. And that doesn't mean that I agree with the outcome. That doesn't mean that I agree with war and violence, because I don't. But I don't think it's that unreasonable. Like any other country
count on me
in the
you're gonna
world,
have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
if they were being treated that way by the largest Western military, the largest military alliance in the world, the most largest and most well-funded military in the world, would view that as a threat to their security. Thank you, Calm Like a Tom, for gifting a sub to Crabiled. Thank you so much. It also feels like the US doesn't give a shit about their Western Europe allies because at the end of the day, they're way more geographically sheltered from consequences. Yeah, no, of course, it doesn't matter to them. They're not impacted by this in any way. It's all a spectator sport, like to holding buried sheet here. That's the tired "we made Russia do it" narrative. Ukraine chose its own path. Literally, that's not true, though. If you look back at the fall of the Soviet Union, the collapse of the Soviet Union, where Ukraine was once Russia's strongest ally in the Soviet Union, at that time was completely undemocratic. At that time, Ukraine wanted to remain part of the Soviet Union. At that time, a vast majority of people in Ukraine wanted that alliance to continue. They were undemocratically overthrown. All of these economic reforms were deliberately inflicted undemocratically on this country. If Putin had power over the sacred areas of Donetsk and Luhansk, that we all knew and cared about prior to this year, democracy is over. That's right. Yeah, that's right. And I'm sorry, but all the stuff about the USSR is a lot more nuanced than what you're making it out to be, because it's something that was deliberately inflicted, right? This collapse of the USSR was something that was deliberately a geopolitical goal that Western imperialism spent billions and billions of dollars and decades creating that exact situation. And in fact, people like Chrystia Freeland in Canada and others have been deliberately involved in creating this like nation building project in Ukraine. So it hasn't just happened independently in this vacuum. It hasn't just happened completely independently. There's been Western influence and the influence of Western imperialism for now decades that have helped create these exact conditions. The idea that this is just something that Ukrainians organically decided on is not true. That is not true. And yeah, it's not about rolling over for Putin. Life is not fair and based on who is right. I'm just being pragmatic. And if conceding something to a bully means less people dying, then that's what I'm in favor of. There's no morality on any side here. It's bullshit. People don't think about basic human life consequences when getting into this discourse. Yeah, and just the idea that that's somehow going to be some appeasement thing and he's just going to go roll over Finland and Sweden and go on to all these other countries, I don't think that is like accurate. I don't think there's any evidence of that whatsoever. Anyway, let's finish watching this video.
5 degrees Celsius, 10 degrees Fahrenheit. That's right at the level, it reaches the level of survival. And of course, it doesn't stop there. Meanwhile, Israeli climatologists who are quite good discovered that
I think less war is better as well.
Projections of rise in sea level were way off. They were dire enough, but it turns out they were far from accurate. It's going to be much worse than that. They predict that by mid-century, there will be a meter of sea level rise. The end of the century, maybe 2 to 2.5 meters. The effects are indescribable. You think about that for the countries there, Egypt, Israel, Lebanon. It's can't even describe it. Meanwhile, what's happening? Israel and Lebanon are squabbling over who will have the right to administer the coup de grace. Literally, they're squabbling over who will control the fossil fuel resources on their maritime border. So who, in other words, will have the opportunity to destroy the two countries while they sink underwater?
And holding buried sheet. I think what King Uendo is referring to when talking about creating Putin is that the United States, by undemocratically overthrowing the Soviet Union, undemocratically overthrowing, installing Yeltsin and inflicting these 10 years of fucking humiliation on the Russian people, which was an absolute human rights disaster, directly led to the exact conditions that allowed someone like Putin to become powerful in the first place, who promised Russians that he would undo this humiliation, that he would restore their place in the world, that he would restore their ability to live decent lives of dignity, which was absolutely destroyed after the fall of the Soviet Union. The United States and Western imperialism intentionally and deliberately created this exact condition that allowed Putin to become popular and powerful in the first place. And it was only after they felt like they lost control of him that they started framing him as the kind of villain that he's been framed as. You know? Putin was Yeltsin's guy. That's what I mean. Yeah, it was like he personally, as I've pointed out before, again, this is not a pro-Putin stream. None of this is pro-Putin, anything that I'm saying. Putin literally profited himself by the collapse of the Soviet Union. But those conditions were created by Western imperialism that he took advantage of. And even Putin wanted to be part of NATO. Putin wanted to be a Western ally and was rebuked every single time, and was still framed, and still this the expansion of NATO and all these things, deliberately threatening and targeting Russia, eventually pushed him into this point where he was like, okay, well, I'm just going to become this kind of anti-Western crusader. And lo and behold, there's a large audience for that. There's a large constituency for that in Russia and elsewhere, of someone that's going to position themselves as being this bulwark against Western aggression, right? They could have reined that in at any time. They could have agreed to not expand NATO. They could have agreed to try and restore Russia from the absolute fucking hell that they inflicted on people in that country, and they didn't. They didn't. They kept pushing at every single moment that they could have pulled back. They kept pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing until they've gotten to this point. But Rob, NATO is a defensive alliance. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, there we go. Do people still believe this? Really? You still believe that? Come on.
That's what's happening before our eyes. Other areas of the world as well. Going back to Ukraine, the longer the war continues, the more the window closes. We move towards increasing fossil fuel production when we must be minimizing, ending them quickly. That's the situation that we are facing. Meanwhile, going back to Ukraine, the United States and Britain, following along obediently, are keeping to the principle that the war must continue to severely weaken Russia, meaning no negotiated settlements, with all the consequences that follow. That's what should be uppermost in our minds, not only because of its significance, but because of all the factors involved in this complex affair. That's the one that we have a possibility of influence. We can't influence what happens in the Kremlin. We can influence what happens in the United States. Again, that should be uppermost in our minds.
Vijay Prashad, I wanted to ask you in terms, not only in terms of the war in Ukraine, but your book deals with interventions of the U.S., your new book, Interventions of the U.S. Throughout the World, Afghanistan, Syria. Can you talk about, here we have a situation where less than about 6 months after the U.S. exit from Afghanistan and supposedly the end of our forever wars, we're embroiled now in the funding and financing of yet another conflict that is shaking the world. Most Americans don't realize most of this aid money is only going to buy weapons from the U.S. war industry. And of course, we have on the horizon the next conflict with China. Talk about this forever war.
And I holding buried sheet. I don't want to get too into the back and forth with you about this because I got to go soon, and I don't want to continue arguing about it. Thank you for being respectful. By the way, you know, I don't usually like debating people or whatever, but I'm always up into these discussions. So that's cool. Why would NATO have incited this war? All NATO countries are worse off now. It depends on who, though. The people are worse off. You know who's not worse off, though? The weapons manufacturers and the energy companies, the Western energy companies. Yes, the people. The people are significantly worse off. But that's not what this is ever about, you know? And even though a lot of it has backfired too, what I think they thought was it was going to weaken Russia or possibly destabilize or overthrow Russia, which has not happened. Their sanctions regime, which they thought was going to destroy the Russian economy, did not work. And in fact, the Russian economy is, I believe, stronger now than it was previously. But the weapons manufacturers and Western energy companies who are getting Western Europe off of Russian gas and putting them onto fracked gas coming from Canada and the United States, they're all doing great. And their shareholders are doing great. The people in these countries, they're not doing great at all. That's never been the fucking priority for any of these fucking monsters, though.
War mentality of the United States and the influence of the Pentagon on how the media portrays many of these conflicts.
Juan, let's just look at some numbers first. Last year, the calculation was that the world's powers spend $2
You can count on me. You're going to have good
That's
old
with
Rob to talk you through all this.
Thank you, Comrade Social Distancing, for another gifted sub. So kind of you. Thank you very much.
On weapons. The United States by itself spends nearly $1 trillion. If you add the money in the Department of Energy budget for nuclear weapons and so on, $1 trillion, $2 trillion globally. Meanwhile, the total budget for the United Nations is $3 billion. That's with a B. We spend trillions of dollars on weapons and only
we love to hear it, Marty.
Billions on peace building. It's extraordinary. I mean, I want more people to know about these numbers. There's a habit of war making. Look, you can't take out Ukraine, lift it out of the earth and put it in Iowa.
This is such a great point.
Ukraine is going to have to live next to Russia. It's going to have to live there. That's where it is. The Ukrainians and the Russians have to come to some kind of agreement. The kind of way in which the rhetoric in this war has accelerated, going back to 2014, that rhetorical acceleration is something that even the Ukrainians rejected when Volodymyr Zelensky came before them in the election. Because after all, Mr. Zelensky came to office vowing to make a peace agreement with the Russians because even he recognizes Ukraine has to live next to Russia. But the United States saw Ukraine
as a kind of
loose nail under which they placed their weapons. Billions of dollars of weapons, much more than the annual budget of the United Nations, in order to egg Russia on. And by the way, it's not just a matter of Ukraine and Russia coming to some understanding, because they do have to live next to each other. And as Noam was saying, in April of this year, they had an interim agreement which looked a lot like Minsk II. But the West said no. The point, as U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin said, is to weaken Russia. You see, the question isn't Ukraine and Russia by itself. It's also the United States and Russia. So when the United States withdrew from the Intermediate Nuclear Force Range
You can
Treaty
count on me.
in
You're going to have good old
2019,
Rob to
that
talk
was
you through
the
all
end,
this.
basically, of
Commissar Thembo, thank you very much for the 6 months of Prime. Very much appreciated. Thank you. I'm going to get to some of your comments in a minute there. Chat.
Most of the arms control treaties between the United States and Russia. In fact, since 2019, we're living without a security guarantee arrangement between these major nuclear powers, the United States and Russia. No wonder that the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists has brought the doomsday clock to within 100 seconds of midnight. You know, it began at 7 minutes to midnight. We are now at 100 seconds. And the reason the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists gives for this is the unilateral withdrawal by the United States from basically the entire architecture of arms control, with Russia in particular. So there's got to be pressure on the Biden administration, not only to back off and allow Zelensky and Putin to talk, to allow them to have some kind of peace agreement that's, you know, with dignity for all sides, but also the United States needs to go back to the table with the Russians and talk to them. You know, if the United States can talk to the Saudis, in fact, pal up with the Saudis, why can't they talk to the Russians? It's ridiculous to say, you know, the Russians are not going to, they're not a good partner, they're not going to live on agreements and so on. Look who's talking. The United States is the country that unilaterally walked away from the Iran nuclear deal. Not the Iranians, it was the United States.
Yeah, it's also they love to talk about how you can't annex your neighbor's territory while literally giving unlimited diplomatic military support to Israel while they do exactly that in Syria and elsewhere. You know, they don't fucking care, to say nothing about their own foreign policy. Honestly feels like this stream is a little pocket of sanity, nice to interact with minds, not completely riled up by war propaganda. Crabell, I really appreciate it. That really means a lot. It's been a goal of mine to kind of create that little space here on Twitch, and I really appreciate hearing those kinds of comments.
It's a bit rum to now say that, well, the Russians are not a reliable negotiating partner. At least try it. You know, for God's sake, for the sake of humanity, we need these major powers with a lot of firepower in their pocket to talk to each other. You can't turn to the United Nations and say, will you do something? As I said, the UN budget is $3 billion. You've got to strengthen peace building in the world and weaken war making. That has to be part of the commitment of sensitive people around the planet, whether in Russia, in Ukraine, the United States, certainly in the United Kingdom.
You both talk about allowing Russia and Ukraine to negotiate, but how does one do that? And talk about exactly what the U.S.
You have to stop saying, no, you're not allowed to do this.
Professor Chomsky.
We're going to coup you if you talk, Zelensky, we're going to coup you if you talk about this stuff.
Stop acting to prevent negotiations. For a long time, there's no time to review the record, but the position of the United States has been to try to undermine possibilities of negotiations.
Professor world-renowned political
Pretty
dissident
straightforward stuff.
and linguist, and Vijay
Stop
Prashad,
telling them not to
director of the
negotiate
Tricontinental
would be the
Institute for
number one
Social
thing.
Research. They've co-authored the new book, The Withdrawal, Iraq, Libya, Afghanistan.
Okay. When you pause face there. A couple comments I wanted to get to here. Cape Codmunist a few minutes ago said European NATO members are getting the U.S. mafioso treatment. That's right. And Vijay and Noam have been talking about this, the Godfather shit. Nice new sucked MPM and pipeline to our rival Germany. Shame if something were to happen to it and force you back into our market. Yeah, it would be a damn shame. It would be a damn shame if anything happened to it. And Nightwing PhD said capitalism is dictatorship of the parasitic class, and the parasites will eat each other's lunch and yours and call it progress. Burn the house for fuel and call it providing services. Very true. Comrade Social Distancing says, if anyone's interested, the reason why electricity costs have doubled, tripled, or worse in the EU is because when only one kind of power, liquefied natural gas, the prices of all the other types of power, wind, sun, nuclear, coal, oil, biomass by EU law must rise accordingly. So Europeans are going to suffer as the good little vassals to the USA that they are. And then again, there's going to be widespread outrage about this. The other thing is, it's fair to consider the idea. Well, honestly, at this point, I think the world would have been better off with Trump instead of Biden. And I'm not even so sure about that, technomancy, on a number of levels, because I think the idea that Trump was some active agent against NATO or against imperialist interests, I don't think that was ever really true. I mean, Ukraine was getting armed and funded under Trump just like it was under Biden. I'm sure Trump, under the kind of pressure that he would be under right now to prove that he's not like a Putin stooge, I highly doubt he would be doing anything differently right now. I would be very surprised if he would. Like, maybe you're right, but I don't know if I agree. Nothing like that. He's just an idiot and had no foreign policy. Well, that's true, but he had people around him that were telling him what to do and say and think about it. And when, for instance, that's the whole thing, Bannon wanted to push back against that kind of stuff, and that's why Bannon became such an outlier and why they had to get rid of him. Trump was out there asking Zelensky for dirt on Biden. Yeah. The other thing is, it's fair to consider the idea of, well, Putin wanted to be an ally, but his country is totally undemocratic, so he can't be let in until he fixes that, and he never does. It's his fault, but all the countries at odds with him also clearly aren't democratic. It's just that their capitalist class doesn't want to be under Putin's thumb. They want their leaders that they control in charge so they can do as they please, and the people be damned. Yeah, that's true. That is true. Yeah, Trump wanted to kinetic fight Iran too. Biden just wants to hybrid war with them. A few other things I wanted to, very true, Matt. A few other things I just wanted to look at because I got to go soon. I have to go in just a few minutes to pick up my kid from school. I wanted to take a look at this though. Not this Don Fig and the Nightfly. Oh shit, I don't even know if I thought I saved the... I had saved an article that I think the tweet must have been deleted about how right-wingers, the pro-Putin conservatives. Let me see if I can find it. I'm going to really briefly just try and find it.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Yeah. I can't find the tweet. I had saved a tweet and it must have been deleted. But I think it's an important thing. It's an important thing to point out. The way that the only ones that are articulating this idea about endless funds to Ukraine. Oh, and Plunger Man, thank you very much for the gifted sub. Thank you for I really appreciate that, Plunger Man. What is this, Duttmeister? Yeah, Bonigan Gap. Indeed, RIP to a real one. I think it's an important point, though. It is an important point that, yes, definitely RIP to Gap. It's important to point out that the only ones articulating this viewpoint when it comes to Putin and Ukraine and why are we giving endless funds to Ukraine, the only ones on the political level that are pointing this out are these right-wing conservatives, these extreme reactionaries. That is going to be a big problem because, like I said, people across the political spectrum are going to start cluing in about how they're getting screwed in this situation. When they see this endless blank check of billions of dollars of funds and arms going to Ukraine, while their lives are getting measurably worse, they're going to put two and two together and realize they're getting screwed in that situation. And when they go turn on the TV to find someone that's going to articulate this idea, all they're going to see is Tucker Carlson and these reactionary conservative right-wingers. And this is only going to lead to increase in power for these dangerous right-wingers with these really radical right-wing views, because all that territory, rhetorical territory, has been conceded to these people. The only ones that are saying, why are we sending billions of dollars to Ukraine? There's no liberals asking this. There's no social democrats asking this. It's completely verboten to even ever mention this. And yeah, when it comes to this pipeline thing, again, it's just funny how no one is everyone fucking knows what happens with this pipeline. Everyone knows what happened.
Destruction of the Nord Stream pipeline, which I would bet was a destruction of the Nord Stream pipeline, which I would bet was a U.S. action, perhaps U.S.
Of course it was.
Poland. This is
right, Jeff, we got to stop there. That's
whoa.
statement as well. Why do you feel that was a U.S. action?
I can't believe. Why would you ever think that? I wonder.
First of all, there's direct radar evidence that U.S. Helicopters, military helicopters that are normally based in Gdansk, were circling over this area. We also
can't say that
from the United States earlier in this year that one way or another we are going to end Nord Stream.
They literally said it.
A remarkable statement by Secretary Blinken last Friday in a press conference. He says,
yeah, seriously, did you see Elon Musk's suggestion for peace in Ukraine and how his otherwise weird bullet-taking fans finally turned on him for it? Extremely rare Elon Musk W. He was absolutely correct. The one fucking time Musk has been correct, he was absolutely true. And of course, that's what makes all the Redditors turn on him finally. The one time he says something that's actually accurate and correct. Unbelievable. We can look at it after. I really got to go soon, but we can look at it after.
this is also a tremendous opportunity. It's a strange way to, it's a strange way to talk if you're worried about the piracy on international infrastructure of vital significance. So I know
Sachs also wrote that article about how COVID came from an American lab. I believe so, yeah. He's also written about how what's happening in Xinjiang is not a genocide as well. Sachs is a pretty interesting guy for one of these establishment types. Has some pretty extreme radical views compared to the people that he probably goes to brunch with.
this runs counter to our narrative. It runs. You're not allowed to say these things in the West. But the fact of the matter is, all over the world, when I talk to people, they think the U.S. did it. And just to tell you, and by the way, even reporters on our papers that are involved tell me privately, yeah, well, of course, but it doesn't show up in our media.
Professor, I don't want to get into tit for tat about what did.
I like the shrug. It do be like that sometimes. Meanwhile, here's Biden's.
We simply use the computer to mark up the size of the account.
This dude has been trying to get on good terms with heaven since the shock doctrine.
Yeah, seriously. Seriously, thank you, Dimitri, for the 200 Fred coin. And here's Biden's denial about the Nord Stream pipeline.
You also asked me earlier about the pipeline, and let me say this. It was a deliberate act of sabotage.
Yeah, no shit, Joe.
And now the Russians are pumping out disinformation. Earlier, lies. And now the Russians are pumping out disinformation and lies. We're going to work with our allies to get to the bottom exactly precisely what happened.
We're going to get to the bottom.
And at my direction, I've already begun to help our allies enhance the protection of this critical infrastructure.
Come on.
And at the appropriate moment when things calm down, we're going to be sending divers down to find out exactly what happened. We don't know that yet exactly, but
just call up your friends in the CIA. They're going to tell you all about it, Brandon. Just call up your friends. They're going to let you know. And I think, this is one of the things that I wanted to. Caitlin Johnstone is someone who I don't always agree with, but I think generally in terms of the foreign policy takes, I often agree with. And we can leave it with this, right? Because I got to go in 5 minutes. He says, the annexation of those 4 Ukrainian territories seems like a great time to end this war. Does anyone else honestly believe a significant percentage of the people who live there want a massive counteroffensive on their doorstep? Seriously, Putin has annexed these territories. This is a great time to just say, okay, let's just call it, right? Let him feel like he got something. The violence and the bloodshed can stop. The endless quagmire can stop, right? It's I think a great time to enter into negotiations. People in Russia want that. People in Germany and France, people that are actually affected by this in terms of the energy policy, people that are on the fucking outskirts of this. But of course, you have people in America, you have the United States government, and people like NAFO fellas living in Virginia that are just like, no, it must continue to be this endless fucking quagmire. That's the only thing. You can never possibly even mention this. You can never even mention this. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. I would like to go more into like Putin's speech that he gave the other day, which I found kind of interesting. Don't really have time for that today, though. Maybe that's something we can get to tomorrow. I was kind of rushing through the last little bit there. Folks, 3 subs away from the goal. 3 subs away. 1 or 2 generous chatters could get us to the sub goal today. Again, people have been very, very kind and generous since I came back to Twitch, so I'm not going to be a hard ass about this. I'm not going to be. I'm not going to be a hard ass about subs. I really appreciate all the levels of support that I've gotten from people here in the community. It has really meant so much to me. So I'm not going to be mean about this.
You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Dimitri, thank you so much. Look at that. There we go.
You can count on me.
Okay, no more now.
Good old
No more.
Rob to talk you through all this.
No more now. Dimitri, thank you for the gifted sub. I really appreciate it, Dimitri.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Crabbiled, I really appreciate the gifted sub. Really happy to have you in the community. Thank you for the gifted sub. And Top Scruffy, thank you for the 17 months of Tier 1. Really, really appreciate it. Really appreciate it, everyone. Thank you. So I got to go. I have a little bit of time here. I'm not too pressed for time, but I want to make sure that I'm not like late or anything. So, thank you again. Thank you to everyone for watching the stream today and hanging out and for all the support. I just noticed how you're drinking a Blue Rain in that alert GIF. I was just drinking one too. It's not my favorite flavor, but it is pretty enjoyable.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob
Tyler,
to talk you through all this.
Watch it. Goose, he says. I specifically said no more subs. So I don't know what's so hard to understand about that. I specifically said. But thank you, Tyler, for the gifted sub. I do appreciate it. I read his speech a few times, except for the socially conservative content. Putin was making points about the history of the U.S. in the world. Yeah, and I would be interested in taking some time to look at that, because like a lot of the things that he was saying about the role of the West in the world was true. I don't really think Putin is the most honest actor when it comes to him making these criticisms. So I think there's an interesting kind of exercise in separating the truth from that speech from the lies or the disinformatia or whatever it is. Maybe that's something we could do tomorrow. And we should, I'll reconfirm with her later, but I should be having Nora Loretto come on the show tomorrow also to talk about more about the Quebec elections. And that is all. And I can defeat a goose. Everyone knows that I could easily defeat a goose. By the way, I have to show you this actually. This tweet from my friend Eve Martel, who I used to work with. I really laughed at this. What is this? I really laughed at this tweet from Eve Martel, my friend Eve Martel, I used to work with at advertising agency. She said, petite pause Twitch avec Rob Rousseau, with like a nice picture there of le chaton avec le stream Twitch là. And I just asked her, mais où est-ce que tu restes sur la question de loi? Like, where do you stand on the goose question? And her answer was so funny. She just said, I'm on your side. Juste à la puncher dans le cou. So thank you, Eve. Just le puncher dans le cou. Easy. Easy solution. Easy. Thank you, Eve, for backing me up on that. Where's that Elon tweet? Again, just before we have to go, the extremely rare Elon W says Ukraine-Russia peace, redo elections of annexed regions under UN supervision. Russia leaves if that's the will of the people. Crimea formerly part of Russia as it has been since 1783 until Khrushchev's mistake. Water supply to Crimea assured. Ukraine remains neutral. And people lost their fucking minds over this. All those loyal Redditors fucking lost their minds over it. For the one time he's fucking reasonable and correct about something. Go figure. Go figure. What a fucked up world this is. Did you see him clap back at Gary Kasparov? No, I didn't. I don't want to start. I'm not going to become an Elon stan now. I can't do that. I can't do that. I'm not going to become an Elon stan now. It's not hyper rare Elon W. Jesus. Anyway, let's rate our friend Left Hand Stew. I don't even know if he started. He better get his ass ready if he's not started yet. Oh, yeah, there he is.
Can the government stick to transparency?
Yo, Lodane!
Okay, we're good to go. Give Stu my regards. Thanks again, everyone, for joining us on the stream today. I'll be back tomorrow. Elon's still an idiot. Couldn't agree more. I'm not going to go down this path of even ironic Elon standing. It's not going to happen. I'll be back tomorrow. We should have Nora Loretto with us tomorrow. I got to get going, but thanks again. I'll talk to you folks tomorrow. Goodbye. I love you. Did that raid work? Did I just cancel the raid? Chat, are you still there? Am I just sitting like this, like still talking to you? Really? Really? Oh my fucking God. What is going on here? Now it says 4. Okay, I'm just leaving. Goodbye. Goodbye.